Good evening and welcome to the February 6, 2017 regular meeting of the Mayor and City Council. First item on our agenda tonight is the Pledge of Allegiance. I'd like to ask Terry Somerville to come up to the podium and lead us in the pledge. And if everyone could please rise.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much, Terry. Next on our agenda is our reflection, and I would like to note that since the last meeting we held, we've had two losses in the Gaithersburg family, one being our good friend Linda Hansen, who is very well known to all of us as a leader in Gaithersburg Help and the Rotary Club, and former City Council member Rodney Thompson, who served a long time ago and also served as a planning commissioner and a volunteer in our community. So if we can have a moment of silence in their honor, that would be great. Thank you very much. Next on our agenda is approval of minutes. Tonight we have 3 sets of minutes, the first being from the regular session held on January 3rd. What is the pleasure of the council?
Mr. Mayor, I'll move approval of the January 3rd minutes.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Absent.
Okay, so that carries 3-0 with 1 abstention. Councilmember Harris. Next is the minutes from the regular session held on January 17th. What is the pleasure of the council?
Move approval.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
1 abstention.
Okay, that carries 3-0 with 1 abstention, Councilmember Spiegel. Next, we have the minutes from the January 23rd work session. What is the pleasure of the council?
Move to approve.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, carries unanimously. Next on our agenda, something that's not a usual thing for our agenda. It is my understanding that we need a motion to confirm the selection of a new city council member for the Gaithersburg City Council. What is the pleasure of the council?
Mr. Mayor, I move that the Yvette Monroe be appointed to fill the vacancy on the City Council until the next municipal election on November 7th, 2017.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That carries 4-0. Yvette, please stand for just a minute. Let's give you a round of applause. Now, that was sort of the first formality. We are going to swear Yvette in at a special session on Wednesday, which we invite you all to attend, 6:30 p.m. And following that special session, there will be a reception in Yvette's honor, and we will welcome her. I know we all look forward to working with her. Next, we have appointments, and so we have 1 appointment to the Board of Appeals. What is the pleasure of the council?
Mr. Mayor, I'll move the resolution confirming the appointment to the Board of Appeals of Gary Young for a 3-year term to expire in February of 2020.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that carries 4-0. And Gary's not here tonight, is he? We will thank Gary when we see him.
If he's upstairs, stomp twice.
Please don't. We're not going to get into stomping. Okay, so next we're going to move into presentations. I would like to invite Chief Sroka to meet me at the podium.
Good evening. The Chief's Award can be presented to any citizen or city employee that provides valuable assistance to another individual that contributes to the safety of the community. When I first learned of the facts came across my desk in regard to the actions of Wells Robertson House Relief Counselor Michelle Jones, who's standing here to my right. I rarely recognized that she was certainly deserving of this recognition. Michelle, on January 6th of this year, about 2 p.m., Michelle was working at the Wells Robertson House, doing her normal counseling duties and homeless assistance services. While she's doing her routine duties, and at this time she thinks it's a routine day, she hears a loud crash from an upstairs bedroom. Michelle's instincts kick in, and she recognizes that this is an individual that has fallen to the floor and may be in need of assistance. Michelle immediately called 911 and went to the upstairs bedroom. Upon entering that bedroom, she observed a 29-year-old male, unconscious and convulsing on the floor. Without any hesitation whatsoever, Michelle began to perform CPR and continued to perform CPR until such time that the victim regained consciousness and the ambulance personnel arrived to take over medical treatment. So Michelle, this certificate of appreciation is awarded for your quick and decisive life-saving aid that you provided on the afternoon of January 7th that clearly went well beyond your normal duties. Congratulations.
You want to say?
Yeah, I'll say a
Please.
few words.
Please.
Thank you so much. I just want to thank Jimmy Frazier Bay and Britta for acknowledging me for this certificate of award. I'm very humbled and I'm grateful to be working for the city of Gaithersburg for Wells Robertson House. And I just thank God that he used me as an instrument, as a vessel to resuscitate the client. I want to thank the first responders who responded really quickly, the police that was compassionate, you know, and understanding to the situation. I want to acknowledge my friends and family and my co-workers that came out to support me. Thank you.
What a wonderful story. Thank you so much. I would like to invite Mayor Tracy Gant to join me at the podium, and I'd like to acknowledge Scott Hancock from Maryland Municipal League, who's joining us too, but doesn't want to come up at the moment. And I'd like to invite my colleague, Mike Sespa, to join us here too. You take it away.
Thank you. Yes. Well, good evening, everyone. Hi. Again, I am Mayor Tracy Gant. I'm also the president of the Maryland Municipal League. I'm here tonight to just pay tribute, there you are, to pay tribute to Mike Sesma. He is exiting the Maryland Municipal League's Board of Directors. He served on the board from 2012 to 2016. He was elected on the Board of Directors for the National League of Cities. So when you are elected on the National League of Cities, you are automatically on the Maryland Municipal League's Board of Directors. So when you sit on the Board of Directors for the Maryland Municipal League, you don't necessarily have to function.
Although he has functions.
You don't necessarily have to, but he did. He really did. He was very active. He came to all of the meetings, I think all of them, from 2012 to 2016. He was very involved. He sat at the meetings. He asked many, many questions. Many questions. He's a smart man. He's a very smart man, very compassionate. I really enjoyed working on the board with Mike Sesma, Councilmember Sesma. We're going to miss you. We thank you for your service. And I wanted to just take the time to come here this evening just to present this award, this certificate to you for your service. Thank you. And just to give you a special gift.
Well, thank you.
You want to say a couple words? Only a couple.
Only a couple. So, Mayor Gant, Tracy, it's been great serving on the, real honor for me to serve on the board of directors of the MML. Been able to serve Gaithersburg and the other municipalities in the state. I hope I've done a good job. I figure the meetings will be shorter now since I won't be there to ask so many questions. That's what they told me at the NLC when I went off the board of directors as well, is that it'll be shorter meetings. So anyway, it was a real pleasure, and I can't thank you enough, Scott, as well, for coming here to give me this recognition. So it was my honor to be able to serve. It was an honor to be able to serve the city of Gaithersburg in another way. So thank you very much.
So next, I'd like to invite former mayor and my great friend and mentor, Sidney A. Katz. And I know there are a number of people here in the audience to be with Sidney, and we're going to bring you up in a minute. But I want to say a couple words about Sidney first. For anybody who's ever been in this room before, you know in order to get here, you have to walk through that hall with all those pictures. And those pictures are former mayors of the city of Gaithersburg. Sidney has, it's been over 2 years since he left us to go to the Montgomery County Council. And I just want to say on behalf of the city, we could have gotten his picture up much more quickly if we had a lot better cooperation from him. But, so this delay is not our fault.
Nothing has changed in Gaithersburg. Blame somebody else.
He's moving at the county speed, not the city speed.
You don't want to do that. I got friends here.
No offense, Nancy.
Craig is here.
Oh, yeah, Craig. I didn't see Craig back there. Hey, Craig. So tonight we're really very proud to commemorate the great service of our friend Sidney A. Katz with a portrait that will hang in perpetuity in our Hall of Mayors. It's our proud tradition to preserve a visual record of those who have selflessly served the residents of Gaithersburg in our highest level of elected office. Sidney, a native of Gaithersburg and proud graduate of Gaithersburg High School, began his public service here as a member of the Planning Commission from 1976 to 1978. He was elected to the City Council in 1978, where he served until his appointment as mayor in 1998, following the death of Mayor Ed Bohr. Sidney was elected to consecutive mayoral terms until 2014, when he moved on to become the District 3 representative on the Montgomery County Council. So we are delighted on behalf of the city that he'll now be with us forever, which he was anyway. And those who walk this hall to join in our deliberations of democracy will be reminded of his many contributions and his lasting legacy. So I'd like to invite all Sally and Nancy and Craig and Lisa and anyone else who came here specifically for this, join us up here and let's unveil this picture.
And Jackie from my office.
Yes.
Lindsay
Yes.
from my office.
Scott, you might as well come up too.
Absolutely.
Yes. Yes. All right. Sidney, you take one side. Sort of.
Yes, sir, Mayor, I'll do that.
All right, I'll let you count it off.
One.
Drum roll.
All right. Well worth the wait. It's an awesome picture.
Did they add some hair on that picture?
Yeah.
So before you speak, I think Lisa, did you? Whatever you want. You go ahead. You go first.
So, on behalf of the
You gotta be on the
new,
mic.
Come over here. Yeah.
on behalf
Everyone else
of
come this
Sydney's
way.
new team cats, I'm Lisa Mandel-Trupp. I'm his chief of staff, and I have our colleagues Lindsay Hoffman and Jackie Hawksford, and we have a presentation. Come on, don't help me. This is a certificate of appreciation designating February 6th, 2017, and every day thereafter as Sydney A. Cats Day in the 3rd District of Montgomery County, Maryland. And we extend congratulations to him on the occasion of his induction into the Gaithersburg City Hall of Mayors. And it's signed on this day by your staff.
Well, this disproves that you can keep a secret in the county council. I had no idea that this was going to happen, but thank you very much. You know, and for the portrait, you know, my mother used to always say, whenever there was a picture of me, she used to look at me and say, you know, Sydney, unfortunately, it looks like you. And that's, and my own mother would say that. So, you know, I truly have been honored time and time again throughout my life, candidly. But to be on the city council of Gaithersburg and serve with many people in this room. Dolly Kildee is in the room, a former city council member. Bruce Goldenson is in the room, a former mayor. And over the years, it really is an honor to serve Gaithersburg in any way that we can serve the city. But it's also been a great honor for me to be the mayor of Gaithersburg, and it's an honor for me to be serving the 3rd District of Montgomery County. It's a very different type of position, but I sincerely enjoy it. I have a wonderful staff, and I did want to mention, so I will be able to go home, I'm very pleased to have my wife Sally with me this evening. And I can say that every day. But the other thing I wanted to mention is that I will be honored to be hanging out in the hall with people whom I've known, many of whom I knew for my entire life, and all of whom I respected. So thank you very much for doing this. Might have taken a while, but we got here. So thank you very much for doing this. Absolutely. Thank you.
Okay. Well, we have this turnover here in the room. I'd like to invite Terry Somerville up here, as well as Ken Weiss and Andy Rosati.
He stared long enough, you can see a spaceship and the Statue of Liberty.
Do you remember those?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, pens on.
Good evening. I'm Ken Weiss from the Multicultural Affairs Committee, and I need to say that Mayor Katz said he would be honored to be hanging in the hall. I think it's his picture that will be hanging and not the mayor. Anyway, African American History Month is celebrated annually in the United States during the month of February. This celebration was started in 1926 by Dr. Carter G. Woodson, who wanted to bring national attention to the important contributions of African Americans to the history of the United States. Woodson chose February because it includes the birthdays of Frederick Douglass, Langston Hughes, and Abraham Lincoln. This year, the Gaithersburg Multicultural Affairs Committee has chosen to celebrate African American history at Diverse City Showcase, a community event that will highlight the cultural contributions of a variety of ethnic groups. Diverse City Showcase will take place at Center Court at Lake Forest Mall on Saturday, March 18th from noon to 4:30. It will be free and open to the public.
My name is Andy Rosati, and I am the city's liaison to the Multicultural Affairs Committee. And I'd like to introduce you to Terry Somerville. Terry Wood Somerville, a Gaithersburg resident since 1979, has always used her talents and passion to serve the community. Following in her mother's footsteps, Terry has spent a considerable portion of her life assisting and advancing opportunity for those in need of help with limited access and resources, particularly within the African American community. As a high school student, she tutored and mentored students to disprove their incorrect branding of being educationally challenged, and she successfully advocated for their placement in more challenging courses. As a parent, served as PTA president, working to increase diversity and encourage African American parents to become involved in their children's educational and career opportunities. As a member of the NAACP's Montgomery County branch, she has chaired committees for labor and industry and for community outreach, and served on various other committees to further the organization's mission of social justice. In private service to the community, Terry has provided decades of assistance from the youngest to the oldest of our city residents in navigating various educational, social, health, and legal systems, applying for and securing eligible services, and mitigating or resolving issues thereof. Because of her efforts and individualized approach, many city residents have achieved financial aid for college, medical care, food and housing, and support with tax preparation and transportation. Please welcome Terry Somerville.
Before I let Terry get to the mic, I'm gonna do the proclamation, and then we'll bring Terry up. So this is a proclamation on behalf of the mayor and city council of Gaithersburg. Whereas the history of African Americans is unique and rich, and has helped define what it means to be an American, and whereas African Americans have come to know the freedoms fought for in establishing the United States, gained through the application of our founding principles of freedom of speech, freedom of the press, the right to assembly, and due process of law, and whereas African Americans have worked collectively to remove systemic racism and discrimination that pervaded our laws and our public consciousness for decades, steadily making progress through the work of Frederick Douglass, Harriet Tubman, Booker T. Washington, George Washington Carver, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., Thurgood Marshall, and others. And whereas African Americans have enriched all of our lives through their many contributions to the visual and performing arts, now therefore I, Judd Ashman, by the power vested in me as Mayor of Gaithersburg, do hereby proclaim February 2017 as African American History Month in the city of Gaithersburg, and encourage all government officials, educators, businesses, and residents of the city to honor, recognize, and celebrate the contributions of African Americans to the culture and well-being of our community. Proclaim this 6th day of February 2017, signed by me, and thank you for receiving it for us. Come on up.
Linda's the president of the NAACP chapter.
Yeah. Come on up.
Yes, I'd
Linda.
like to acknowledge
Come on up.
the Montgomery County branch of NAACP President Linda Plummer. I humbly accept this proclamation on behalf of the African American citizens in the city of Gaithersburg, who without their participation, their steadfast determination to be joyful and spread love even through their adversity, would not contribute the diversity, the rich diversity that this city has. What I'd like to also say is that what I'd also like to say is that we appreciate We appreciate your support as we struggle to continue making things right, making things the way they should be together. We continue to be caring, give our words of comfort, steadily be convicted, and where need be, help people convert. So these are trying times, but this place is a good place for people of color to be. I'm proud that the African Americans are a significant part of helping people feel welcome here, having been made welcome ourselves. If there is anything that you feel that we can do to, when I say we, I'm talking about the community as a whole, but especially the Multicultural Affairs Committee, please do come to them and let them know if there's anything that you feel could be better in helping us to accentuate our similarities instead of our differences, because there are many more similarities than there are differences. Thank you very much for this.
Thank you very much for those very inspiring remarks. Okay, I would like, the next week item on our agenda, presentation from the Local Government Insurance Trust Training Grant Award. So I'd like to invite Tim Aylesworth to join me up here. Tim, did you want to introduce do you want to give the background on this, or would you want me to do it?
I actually have a couple of
Please.
checks to give tonight.
All right, great. I'll let you take it away.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mayor and Council, for the opportunity to speak here tonight. My name is Tim Aylesworth. I'm the Executive Director of the Local Government Insurance Trust. And before I get started, I want to recognize a few other people. You've heard Scott's name, Hancock's name tonight, and heard Tracy speak. And the two of them, along with Tony Tomasello, serve on our Board of Trustees. And I'm happy to work for them. They're a great group of people, 3 of the 12 folks for whom I work. In addition to that, Lynn Board ably sits on our claims committee, so she's the person that spends the money in our office, but does a great job. I'm actually here for 2 check presentations tonight. And, you know, Mayor, I was hoping that would get me first on the agenda. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. The first one, I don't want the second to be anticlimactic. That's the training grant presentation. But the first check I'm presenting tonight is for $167,000. And the reason I want to mention that first is because in recognition of Mayor Katz this evening, he, along with Mr. Tomasello and the council, took a chance and became an early member of our local of Legit Health. It's a health cooperative where if you do well, you have great experience, you get money back, and that worked well. And so I'm pleased because of the great experience that the city had in the past year to be able to return $167,000 in unused funds. So with that, Mayor, I'm happy to turn that over to you, sir.
Zoom in on that check.
And the second that got me on the agenda tonight, the second is a check for $7,000. And this is important, and particularly in today's time. And Chief, you may want to come forward, sir, with this check. This is a $7,000 training grant for the City of Gaithersburg Police Department. In it, I want to congratulate the chief for applying for this grant and understanding the way the world is changing. It is a grant for law enforcement active diffusion strategies. I've been involved in local government pooling for 26 years, and there are several things I've come to realize through the years, and one of the most important things of reducing police claims, having better communities, healthier communities, is if the police do a good job of psychological testing beforehand in police selection. And then secondly, more importantly, is to approach folks when stops are made or when visits are made, to approach those in a civil manner rather than in an accusatory or a military manner. And this training provides that type of will assist the Gaithersburg Department in accomplishing that mission. And so with that, I would like to present this check to the Chief of Police for the Law Enforcement Active Diffuse Training. And if you'd like to say more about it. And then finally, I will recognize, I want to mention that Legit is made up of 184 members of municipalities. We currently insure 144 of 157 municipalities in Maryland and 17 of the 23 counties in one form or another. And that Gaithersburg is a charter member of that program as well, one of the original 23. So we've grown from the original 23 taking a chance back in 1987 to a successful organization that now has about $60 million in assets. And because of the long-term membership and the good experience of the City of Gaithersburg in the property and liability program, of which the police liability is a part, and property, this year, in this year's premium beginning on July 1, received $67,000 in credits and discounts because of the good experience in the long-term membership, which represents just about 20% of the overall gross premium it would have been had you not belonged to Legit. So again, I want to congratulate the city on that as well. And thank you.
Sure. On behalf of the city, I just want to express our appreciation to Tim and the local government insurance trust organization for approving our grant application. But in doing so, then that enabled every Gaithersburg police officer, every city code inspector, as well as about 90 other officers from throughout Montgomery County to attend the training on January 30th and 31st of this year. And I'm quite confident that with the training that was received, which was on communication skills, reading body language of aggressive individuals, finding ways to find common ground to get to the problem, and to diffuse confrontational situations peacefully. And that's ultimately what our goal is, to accomplish our lawful objectives with a peaceful resolution. That's not always possible, but that's what we strive to do. And this training is going to help every officer here in the city and the officers throughout Montgomery County that received the training last month. And in doing so, that will enable us to continue to provide the highest quality of police services to our citizens. Our citizens in this city have come to expect it, and they deserve nothing less than our best. So thank you again.
Oh, yeah. For anybody who went upstairs and is interested in participating in the public hearing or being in the room for the rest of this meeting, please come on down. There is now space. Next on our agenda is public comments. This is the time when the mayor and council would like to hear from anyone who'd like to speak on any topic other than a public hearing topic. Tonight we have one public hearing. It is on the proposal for the Kentlands Apartments. So if you're here to speak on that, hold off. That will be the next agenda item. If you're here to speak on anything else, We ask that you keep your remarks to no more than 3 minutes. When your we ask that you state your name and address or neighborhood for the record. When your time is down to 30 seconds, the timer will beep and turn yellow. When your time's up, it will beep and turn red. Who would like to be our first speaker this evening?
My name is Aaron Rosenzweig. I live in Wesley with my wife, children, and chickens. I have some screenshots here of the Gaithersburg Book Festival website. On the sponsors page, we have many sponsors, including Maryland State Arts Council, but premier sponsors, we have a company called Web Mobile Image, one of those names that doesn't really mean much. But when I look at the bottom of every page, it says Responsive Web Design and Development by Web Mobile Image. When I go to Web Mobile Image's website, I see that they showcase Gaithersburg Book Festival as one of their main clients. When I go to the About page, it says, Judd Ashman officially serves as the president, but often also plays the roles of creative director, project manager, designated best friend to our clients. Now, I can see that he's sweating there a little bit because the first time that I asked him to tell all of us, free of charge, how much the city pays to fund the book festival, he refused. And immediately the day after, he removed all of those wordings from the website. He was no longer listed as a premier sponsor overnight. I wonder how come. You know, it seems kind of great that you would donate money to this cause. And I never see any bidding process for who does the website for the book festival. The reason is, if you sponsor something, there's no need to bid it out because you're getting a good deal. I don't know the dollar amount because you're not talking, but imagine if you told the city that it costs $50,000 to host this book festival, but because it's the city, you'll do it for 40 grand. That means you're sponsoring it for 10,000. But actually, you're pocketing the money. You are not a programmer. You don't have talent. You're just an opportunistic businessman who uses your influence to channel money and then hire people to do the work. You asked us 5 inane questions. Is it time to raise the debt? We've never had debt before. Is it time to raise taxes for your pet projects? Mayor Ashman, maybe it's time for you to tell us how much you're spending on these projects and not ask for a blank check to fund your pet projects. Thank you.
Thank you. I will respond to that. I was the founder of the book festival. Aaron, please sit down. Please sit down.
Well, let's see.
I was the founder of the book festival. I have a web design and development business. As the owner of my business, we design, develop, host, manage that website pro bono. Never has one penny come in from the city for that website. That would certainly be a violation of our ethics code, and which I take very seriously. And I would suggest that the dollar value that I've put into that website and my team has put into that website over the years is substantial. I actually, I don't recall taking my business off the list of sponsors for which our pro bono, our donation, our substantial donation in time and effort for that website would rightfully accord me. I don't recall taking the business off of that, but certainly we have every right to be listed as a sponsor of the event, given how much we donate of our time and valuable energy and talent into into the website. So if anybody has any further questions, feel free to ask me directly. Do we have any other speakers this evening? Okay. Then, do we? Oh, come on up, please.
This is not about the.
Is this about the Kentlands Apartments or? Okay, we're going to get to that in a sec. That's the next item. So let's move on to our public hearing, and I'm going to invite Jasmine Forbes to the table to introduce the Kentlands Apartments proposal, and then we'll have the applicants. And this is a joint public hearing, so I'd like to have the Planning Commission join us up here as well.
It's nice time. It's actually time.
Jasmine, go ahead.
Ready?
Yes.
Good evening.
Good evening.
So this is a joint public hearing on schematic development plan SCP-7362-2016 Kentlands Apartments. As shown on the monitor, the subject properties are located at the corner of Quince Orchard Road and Great Seneca Highway. The request is for 2 6-story apartment buildings and associated parking garage. The public hearing for this application was initially scheduled on November 7th, 2016, but the applicant wanted to do additional community outreach, so during that meeting, the applicant submitted a letter requesting that the council defer the meeting to a later date. The council had approved and moved the public hearing to the meeting this evening. The November 7th public hearing was duly advertised on October 20th and October 27th in the Washington Post and posted on the city's website since October 14th. At the present time, there are 63 exhibits in the record files. They are referenced in an exhibit list in the files. Staff recently received 3 additional correspondence for this application and has become part of the Mayor City Council's outside correspondence package and will become part of the record for this application. The individual exhibits may be reviewed during the course of the meeting or in the Planning Code Administration Office during regular business hours at City Hall or on the city's website. Any objections to the receipt of any exhibit should be noted prior to closing of the record, otherwise will be deemed received in evidence. And I'm going to give the podium to Coach Jody Klein from Miller and Canby, who's going to introduce the team.
Good evening. My name is Jody Klein. I'm an attorney with the law firm Miller & Canby, and we represent the applicant in this case. Preliminarily, I just say, Ms. Monk, congratulations on your selection serve on the council. This applicant's kind of real pleased. It will be probably the first application you really sink your teeth into, and we're hoping that the presentation today is the quality you would expect to see at something like this. And that's really what I'm just going to, because I know you've got a lot of people you want to go through. So I just want to really tell you who the witnesses we're going to have come up here. So in anticipation of questions you might want to ask, you kind of know who's the right person to ask that question of. When I get out of here, Scott Wolford's going to get up and kind of walk you through all the mechanical aspects of the development, the property itself, what's there, what the constraints were, and how we worked with those constraints. Then the architect, Bob Dunning, is going to get up and talk to you about the design of the building, not only in the initial application, but revisions we've made since that time in terms of meeting with our neighbors and talking to them about things. And then the last witness will be Mr. Cook, our traffic engineer. And I'm going to ask you to pay particular attention to not only the circulation of vehicles, but also the improvements we're making. You'll hear that we're, I think, in some ways going to be able to solve a larger transportation issue outside the limits of our property. And in fact, this is probably in some ways more than just our building sitting right at that corner. Your city staff really wanted to make sure the application was tight. They wanted to make sure that we did not violate any green space requirements in Kentlands. Do you know how long it takes to analyze the total amount of green space in all the developments that's been approved in Kentlands? But we've been able to do that. We've been able to give a traffic study to Mr. Mumford to go ahead and talk about that so you can have that information. If you could put up the slide, though. I just did want to, because I know you've got a lot of people you're going to hear from this evening, And I wanted to just see sort of our outreach efforts, not only with adjacent property owners, not only with the Kentlands community, but you can see a number of meetings with the Colonnade, who has probably the greatest interest in this application. And I think it's fair to say, as you'll probably hear this evening, those discussions are going to be continuing. If you have any questions, I'm glad to answer them, but otherwise we'll get right in our presentation, try and do this succinctly as possible so that you've got time to hear and listen to everybody else this evening. Any questions? Thank you very much.
What's that? Yes.
Good evening. My name is Scott Wolford. I'm a licensed landscape architect and a certified planner with Mazer Consulting. The property in question is located at the intersection of Quince Orchard Road and Great Seneca Highway. This is Route 124 running east and west. Great Seneca Highway is Route 119 running north and south. It's at the southwest corner of the site. This is Great Seneca Highway, Route 119 running north and south. Quince Orchard Road running east and west, Route 124. The site is 913 and 917 Quince Orchard Road. It's parcels I and J, and it comprises 3.1 acres. The current site use is an existing parking lot for what used to be the Boston Market and the Dia Bistro and the parking lot around it. Immediately to the west of the property is the condominium project called the Colonnade, and south of the property is the existing development called Kentland Square Shopping Center. The property access at the moment is via Booth Street and then on an easement across Arch Place to the project, or by Granite Place on an easement and then Arch Street to the project, or by Main Street and then through an easement through the Kentland Square Shopping Center. And all those easements exist today and serve as the access to the property. Next slide. This is the site plan of the site. The design factors that we worked on was this is a significant intersection and a significant gateway to the city of Gaithersburg. So we were very concerned about the look of the project along Quince Orchard Road to the north, and especially along Great Seneca Highway, and the preservation of open space at the intersection. We were also concerned about how the project looked to the adjoining colonnade to the west. As a result, we did a three-sided project. There's residential building on the west, there's residential building on the north, and also on the east. The parking garage is tucked into the center of the project. There's an interior courtyard with amenity space and a swimming pool. And the more details of the architecture, Bob Dunning will get to in just a minute here. The garage access is through the back of the project in two locations off of a continuation of the street that comes underneath the building. So Arch Place comes across. It'll be relocated and continue through the project around the Great Seneca Highway side and to a new right-in, right-out that we've gotten approved located on Great Seneca Highway. And then this street is currently shared between the Colonnade and the property, and this is called Granite Place 2. It doesn't have a name, but that's what it's called at the moment. And then access can come down, come under the building with adequate clearance, and then come back out to the right-in, right-out on Great Seneca Highway. And then on the front of the building, there is a drop-off area located near the building offices that Bob will talk about in a minute. Next slide. When we worked on the project, this better shows the circulation, continuation of Arch Place, the drop-off at the front of the building on the east side, the circulation past it, the continuation of circulation under the building, the two access locations to the parking garage. The parking garage is 1 story below grade and 6 stories above grade. And then this is Granite Place 2 that continues down the west side of the project, across the south and out to the entrance location on Great Seneca Highway. One of the things that was important for us and the clients on this project was to gain access to Great Seneca Highway to give additional relief to the traffic coming to and off the project. We work very closely with the State Highway Administration to do this, and Glenn Cook, the transportation planner, will go into this in a little further detail. But this is approved location with the State Highway Administration, and as part of that condition, we're going to then continue a full lane on Great Seneca Highway that'll connect with the right-hand lane merge and the decel lane down at Main Street to make a continuous third lane across the frontage of the property down to Main Street in front of the Kentland Square Shopping Center. One of the next things that we did was when we met with the community, was the connection or the impact of the future Corridor City Transitway alignment on the project. The city didn't want us to impact it. The state didn't want us to impact it, so we designed around that. We actually pulled the project back to the west slightly to accommodate the future CCT alignment. We met closely with the MDOT, Maryland Department of Transportation, and State Highway Administration to coordinate with this. And we also work very closely, and Glenn will get into it in a little bit. These are the pier locations because the CCT does get elevated as it goes past the project. Our right in, right out is coordinated with them. We did site distance analysis to make sure that the piers didn't interfere with the visibility of oncoming cars. And we did several sections and got it approved so that we have a clearance for the height of the vehicles coming in and out here under the proposed structure for the Corridor City Transitway. During the community coordination meetings, one of the elements that came up was the size and mass of our building and the proximity or the closeness of it to the existing colonnade building on their east face. So what we did, and I'll show you this in a minute, along this face of the building, we're at 6 stories, but there was a concern about how close we were to the colonnade building and the height of our building. So in this slide, this is a slide through Granite Place 2. This is the existing colonnade building, which is 52 feet to the top of the eave here. And they average about 15 feet 7 inches back from the face of the curb. Along this corridor, what we were able to do was we widened the street. The street previously was 20 to 21 feet wide, and we made this a consistent 24 feet, which pulled us 3 to 4 feet away from the colonnade. And then through some subsequent design to the building and to our site, we moved our building to the east 4 feet. This was the old face of the building here. And we moved the building 4 feet back additionally from the colonnade building. And then another design element that the architect worked on was the old face of the building used to go up the full 6 stories with a parapet wall at this location. And what we did with the top floor of the building was we pulled the eave line down 18 feet 8 inches, and then we took this top floor and pushed it back 9 feet to try to reduce the scale as it was adjacent to the colonnade building. So our eave line now is at 56 feet 2 inches, and their eave line is at 52 feet 0.33 feet. So from the ground level, when you're driving or occupying the ground level space, the eave line will be seen and the rest of the building will fade into the background. And so there was an attempt to move away from their building and create more space between the two buildings, and then to also respond to their concerns and lower the building some. And just to quickly illustrate just the mass of the two buildings and how we were trying to work with it, this is Quince Orchard Road going east to west and Great Seneca going north to south. So the first section I'll show you is a section through our north building and the buildings at the colonnade. And what this shows is this is Great Seneca Highway. This is our green space. This is the proposed building. This is Granite Place 2, and then these are the buildings of the colonnade. And this is Arch Place that enters onto their project. So this was just to show kind of the mass and scale of the two projects, so that we thought that they fit together pretty well. The next section I'll show you is through Arch Place, starting at Booth Street in the west and then running to Great Seneca Highway in the east. And that's the second section here. This is Booth Street at the west end. This is the Colonnade Building as it looks in a kind of a building section elevation through Arch Street. This is a bridge over Arch Street, and there's two more bridges over Arch Street. This is Granite Place access off of Quince Orchard. This is Granite Place 2 between the two projects, and then this is the proposed development. And here you can see the step back where we lowered this 18 feet. The third is a section at the south end of the property through both of the buildings. And this starts at Booth Street, the Colonnade buildings, the access at Granite Place, the distance for Granite Place to between the buildings, and then the parking structure and the east wing of the residential that kind of wraps down along the garage to hide the garage from Great Seneca Highway. And this is the west-facing elevation of the building. And at this point, I'll turn it over to Bob, and he can talk about what he did on this face to try to better respond to the concerns for the colonnade.
Sure, it might be. My name is Bob Dunning. Thank you for allowing me to be here to introduce the project. We're Dunning Group Architects, and we're the architects for the project. This slide that you see right before you now, it was actually a modified elevation where we show a portion of the sixth floor being pushed further back, as Scott had mentioned earlier about the eave line. I guess we'll call it the balcony line or eave line is this white stripe, if you will, this trim. And you're seeing balcony railings picked up here as we push the facade back, and that occurs along this primary length of Granite Place 2. What you're seeing on the back side here is the apartment building has been pulled back to allow for fire truck access and ladder access across the top of the parking garage, and that was done as part of the coordination we did with the city. Good. Next slide. Actually, this one just go to the next slide. This one's already been seen. What we have here is a rendering, if you will, from the intersection of Great Seneca and Quince Orchard Road, trying to show the mass of the structure, the materials, and what we have here. Again, we have Quince Orchard off to the right of the project here. There will be some green area around the perimeter of the building that Scott had referred to earlier. If I start at the left side of the photograph or the rendering here, the access is just for the site is just off the picture frame, if you will. You'll see an entrance to the garage over on the far left side where vehicles coming and going there, and that's part of the wrapper around the parking garage. As we move to the right, through here is the primary entrance, and we have a covered entry where actually the masonry you see here essentially forms columns, and the glass facade is pushed back behind that, and there's a drop-off area, and there's kind of a figural element, if you will, this rounded piece here, just trying to create a little bit more monumentality, if you will, on the facade as it addresses the corner. The street turns and goes through the structure. You see the elevated floors 3 through 6, and that is a continuation of Arch Place. And there's a secondary entrance, if you will, off to the right of the travel lane, which is for the second of the two buildings that we're discussing. There is also short-term visitor parking and a loading space out here as well. The materials that we've used were in part taken from the Colonnade project with regard to the masonry, the trims, the brick, trying to create a compatible architecture. The scale, as far as where we have the cornice, the trim lines, were also borrowed from the Colonnade again to create some harmony between the two buildings. And that's what I have right now. Let's go to the next slide. This is a two-dimensional version of what you just saw in the 3D rendering, more to give an idea of the actual proportions as you're looking at it. So there's not much to add on this one. Let's go to the next one. This is the facade before it was modified to accommodate the pushback, if you will, of the 6th floor. You'll notice there's no railing through here. It looks very similar. Again, the 6th floor didn't go away. It was just pushed back from the face of the building to allow a bit more light and to give a feeling that the buildings were in more similar proportion to each other. And that's what I have here. This rendering was actually prepared as part of our discussions with the colonnade to get an idea of what was really occurring between the two projects. This would be, as Scott referred to it, as Granite Place 2. And this is, again, before the top level was pushed back. If you look at the trim line that goes where the cursor is moving along here, this essentially has become our new eave height, as Scott called it, where we push back, and this white portion of the building is what's being pushed back to 9 feet. The streets are also wider than they're shown in this one by the 4 feet, 3 to 4 feet that Scott mentioned, and our sidewalks are now deeper by approximately 4 feet as well. This is an earlier rendering, and it was available to us when we did our submission. And as we anticipate, this will be updated in our continued discussions with the colonnade. Okay, that's what I have here. And again, this is a repeat slide from what Scott had, again, just showing the balcony and railing line. Okay, so go ahead and do one more. This is just a ground level floor plan. I know at this scale it's very difficult to see. As Scott already talked about the vehicular path and travel way around the building, the idea was to create a full loop for traffic. Even though we have the parking garage in the back here, it overlaps, if you will, the travel way through here. In working again with the fire department, fire marshal, and then planning for the heights, it is actually set up so that it can accommodate all the emergency vehicles, fire trucks, everything through there. I believe we have the lowest point is about 1310 to the underside of the next deck, so it is a continuous throughway, so it is not secured and is part of the travel path, although it occurs within the footprint of the parking garage itself. Excuse me. With respect to loading on the site, I mentioned earlier a loading space, and this one occurs outside the smaller of the two building footprints. There is a second loading space that actually occurs under the building as it goes back to access the parking garage from Great Seneca Highway. There is a smaller area over where we have motorcycle and bicycle parking as well. The main trash collection, actually the trash is kept internal on this. There are trash rooms and trash chute systems is what we're proposing. Therefore, we don't have any outdoor dumpsters, and it'll be ventilated. We have the trash collection areas in a few key locations. On the C-shaped wraparound on the parking garage, we have one about where the cursor is now. I don't know if that's visible on the screen. There's another one at the top side of that C. There is another secondary one right over here, right after the rounded element. And there's a fourth one that occurs back over by the bridge element on the right-hand side. And those are, again, the trash collection points. With respect to sidewalks and pedestrian access, we with the exception of the travel way that goes underneath the parking garage, it does wrap the entire site. Scott already mentioned the exterior courtyard and the swimming pool and landscaped areas back in there. Let's see, most of the, I guess, the stats are with regards to number of bedrooms and things. It's a 295 unit development as is currently proposed. I believe we have 59 studios. There are 153 one bedrooms, 95 two bedrooms, and 9 three bedrooms, if I did that correct. So what that represents is about 65% of the development are studio and one bedrooms. And that was in part a response to where we saw the market currently and some other things with regard to public facilities accommodation. And that's, try the next slide. And this one brings me to Glenn, our traffic engineer. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Glenn Cook. I am Vice President of the Traffic Group. We're a traffic engineering and transportation planning consulting firm. As in any project in Gaithersburg, there's requirements that we have to fulfill as far as studying the impact of traffic along the adjacent roadways. And in this particular property, when we were brought on board, we knew there were several challenges that we needed to look at and address. So I contacted your staff, Mr. Mumpire, to determine what we needed to look at from a scope standpoint, what intersections were critical, and what he would like us to to analyze as part of our report. In addition, we had come up with the thought that we would like to try to get an access to Great Seneca Highway or even possibly Quince Orchard Road, which would relieve some of the pressure of the traffic coming across Arch Place through the colonnade. So we talked with the State Highway Administration and got their requirements. So we did a study that was for the benefit of the city and for the State Highway Administration. We subsequently met with the State Highway Administration to talk about the future access points. And as it relates to the access along Quince Orchard Road, we were told to forget that idea. The access would have had to come out. There's a dedicated right turn deceleration lane through that area going eastbound on Quince Orchard Road. And the state does not like to put access points right in the middle of a deceleration lane. Plus you have Granite Street just to the west of that. So you would have had two driveways in very close proximity to it. So we turned our attention to Great Seneca Highway, and we looked at that, and we had a meeting with the State Highway Administration and the MTA, Mr. Rick Kegel, who is the project manager for the CCT project. And we all sat around the table and had a brainstorming session on what we could do to get an access over there. As I believe Scott mentioned earlier, CCT is going to be coming across Quince Orchard and then making a 90-degree turn to proceed down Great Seneca Highway, and that's going to be elevated. So we would have to we were going to get an entrance in there, we were going to have to fit it in somehow underneath, not only to worry about the vertical clearance that we need, but also the sight lines for cars that are coming up waiting to exit our entrance to make sure the piers would not block their vision. So we got plans from Mr. Kegel, and we worked on our plans, and we developed a driveway that we thought was fine. We were able to get between the piers, we were able to meet the state standards as far as the width of the driveways, and the pilings for the overhead were far enough back beyond the curb line that they would not obstruct the vision of motorists coming out of our property. So that access worked very well for us. So we started laying our plan out that way. The only concern that we had about having that access along Great Seneca is that it's fairly close to the intersection of Quince Orchard Road. And today, as you're going eastbound on Quince Orchard and you make the right turn to go south on Great Seneca, that's a free-flowing right turn lane. And there's an acceleration lane there. So anybody making that movement gets forced over into the through traffic. And so they have to wait until there's an opening or a gap in the through traffic to make that maneuver. So what we suggested was that rather than having that maneuver, since you have a dedicated deceleration lane along Great Seneca down at Main Street, it made sense to widen the distance between those two, the end of the acceleration lane and the beginning of the deceleration lane, so that we would have a continuous lane all the way along Great Seneca Highway in the southbound direction, going from Quince Orchard Road down to Main Street. And that helps eliminate a lot of the weaving that would happen in that distance. The State Highway Administration was very happy with that, and we made that a recommendation in our report, and they accepted that. The report that we did, again, we did it based on the city standards, but we also did it based on state highways because there are some differences between how people look at things. So we did it both ways, and when we submitted it to Mr. Mumpower's office, we got back a letter saying that he concurred with our methodology and the findings of our report, that the traffic being generated by this site being dispersed over multiple access points, some going through the easement areas along Arch Place that was discussed previously, but also primarily because of our access to Great Seneca Highway. He felt that we were within the city standards. The State Highway Administration also gave us a letter saying that they felt that we had adequate access for our property and that none of the nearby intersections would operate at unsatisfactory levels of service based on their standards. And finally, we also received a letter from Mr. Rick Kegel from the CCT saying that he felt the design of our entrance took into consideration what their plans are for the overhead bridge supports on that corner, and that they had no objections to the placement of that access there. So all said and done, we were able to get approval to get that access on the Great Seneca, and we think that provides a big enhancement because it gives another major way of people exiting, not only from our site, but some people with the road connectivity that we have between us and the colonnade. Some people from the colonnade, we don't know how many people are going to do it, but some of them have the option of coming through our project and using that access to get to Great Seneca, which would keep them from going out on Quince Orchard Road. So we see that as a plus as well. So based on everything we did, from a number standpoint, a capacity standpoint, our study showed everything would be fine. From an operational standpoint, we're making several enhancements that we think are going to improve traffic conditions out on this corner.
I'll just take a second, just try and wrap it all together. I was reminded when I heard your discussion about the past mayors that in all the years that I came and talked to Ed Bohr about what should happen in Kentlands and then Mayor Katz, I was always instructed that whatever happens on this property has to be really good. This is a really important piece of property. It announces your entrance to the city, and we want something that's emblematic of the quality of the city and the quality of Kentlands. We hope that you find that what we've proposed satisfies that requirements. We're basically going, well, let's put it this way. When you get your staff report, you can see that the application meets all the standards of the zoning ordinance. They're in accordance with the master plan, meets your adequate public facilities ordinance standards for both schools and traffic. And what our goal now is to basically continue our dialogue with our neighbors of the colonnade and with the city to try and polish this up to get it to be the building that the city always wanted to have on this really important corner. Thank you. Any questions at all for any of us?
Yes. Thank you all very much for the presentation. I'm sure you'll have a few questions from up here, and I'm sure we'll have some questions from the public as well. And I'll start off, in your discussions with MTA regarding the CCT, my understanding is that parking for the CCT was sort of planned for this property. What was MTA's sort of reaction to this plan vis-a-vis the parking for CCT?
That's why we went to Baltimore to ask them the same question. Scott, you were there at the meeting. Let's go ahead and tell what Mr. Kegel told us. And I think you can speak candidly.
Rick said that, Mr. Kegel said that they were at 30% design, that they had placed a parking lot on this piece of property because it looked vacant, and they thought that was a good match for it. He said that they did not have money to purchase any right-of-way or any property where there was an alternative use that would then obstruct the success of the CCT. And he did not feel that the parking lot was a critical component to the success of the CCT, and they did not have money to purchase it. So in the letter that he sent to us, he said that we were to proceed with the plan the way that we have it.
So in the structure, the garage structure that you have, do you envision any opportunity for public parking in that garage?
We have not. We just have the garage just satisfies the needs of our community.
And I'm assuming there are guest spots too.
Oh yes, lots of guests.
And we have cross easements with Colonnade, so we have to accommodate them as well. Some of their spots for them as well.
Okay. I guess I'll get to one more question. I'll open it up to everybody else. I know based on the number of meetings that you guys had, and I certainly appreciate the community outreach that you did, do you, and I'm sure we'll hear from the public as well, but it seemed that you guys increased the setback a bit and you adjusted the top floor. In your opinion, did that cover the concerns that you received from the community?
You put me in a difficult position. We've had discussions going back and forth where probably both parties aren't probably prepared to disclose everything that's going on. It's more than just building setbacks. It's participation. It's improvements to the circulation network. There is a memorandum of understanding that has been drafted and has been critiqued and is in circulation. I guess I could say this, our discussions have been primarily with, say, the management, the boards of the various groups. I believe there are individual residents who probably may or may not agree with what others are working on. I think we are optimistic that eventually we can reach an agreement, but I don't know if that necessarily applies to all residents of the colonnade.
Okay. Who'd like to ask questions next, please?
So thank you for the very thorough presentation. I'm not sure I've ever seen a package quite this large as the 700 plus pages of material you provided us with that several of us had trouble actually even downloading.
I told you your staff really made us get into it.
It was quite thorough. So I've been talking to a number of residents. I talked to the folks at the Kentland Citizens Assembly, and I've done some outreach on some of the social networks and heard what people were concerned about. And I think you've addressed some of those issues. I'd like to specifically focus on one that I haven't really heard addressed except in passing today, which is the impact on the local schools. As I think you're very well aware, and most of the people in the room are aware, we're having a little bit of a challenge finding enough room for our school kids in the area. There is a plan to provide extra capacity so that it'll offload some of the overload from Rachel Carson. And I noticed that only 1/3 of the apartments in your building plan are more than one bedroom, which is probably, I would say that a studio and a one-bedroom apartment probably won't have a big impact on schools. How much of an impact in terms of Rachel Carson and the other local schools do the figures show that this development would incur?
The direct answer, let me put it this way, the answer that I can give you right now is basically we know how many students are likely to be generated. I cannot tell you right now what the actual population or occupancy of Rachel Carson are. In our research, we came to the conclusion that we met your adequate public facilities ordinance standards, but I'd be glad to go back and basically get that down to more numbers rather than just we comply. I just don't have those numbers right now, Mr. Harris.
Aren't those usually part of the package at this stage of the game? They're in there. 700 pages. I didn't quite find that.
Well, certainly the pupil generation is there, and a
so
conclusion that we
what is
meet
that number? Do you have it off?
in terms of the total number of pupils generated. Pardon me? I mean, I can give you it all through. Elementary level, 20.9, middle school, 8.6, high school, 11.2, for a total of 40.7. Based on the type of the building, the mix of the units, and what the Board of Education's typical student generation rates are for those type of units.
Okay, thank you.
You know, if the colonnade had projections of numbers that would be generated, do you have any idea whether those were accurate?
I don't know the answer. I know the actual number of students from the colonnade that do attend the public schools. I don't have it with me tonight, but I know exactly what it is, and my recollection is that it was lower than what the Board of Education's generation numbers were.
So one of the concerns, you know, when I drive down Quince Orchard or Great Seneca, the colonnade is actually a pretty massive structure. It stands out. It's monumental. Is one of the words that was used tonight. This one is going to overshadow the colonnade by at least a story, like about 18 feet. That seemed to be a significant concern for residents of the colonnade and other neighborhoods. It certainly would be a prominent feature in the entrance to that part of the city. So is there a reason that you have to go up 6 stories instead of 5, other than just coming up with the number of units that you feel is important for this project?
And I'm going to let the architect or the landscape architect answer. I would say that based on we wanted a building that made an impression, and we felt that we needed that mass to do that. I guess I'm a fan of the colonnade, so I don't mind it, other than maybe it's up closer to the road. But Mr. Dunning, explain why we're at the height we're at.
There's several reasons. Good question. There were several reasons. We actually, as we went through and looked at the cost for developing the property, the anticipated cost, there was a set number of units that we were targeting as a break-even for the development. And that break-even number was approximately 300. We're currently at 295. As we were doing the initial or conceptual layouts for the site, we actually had a larger footprint. And then we came to the city and did some more research and found out that some of the utilities were, I guess, not going to be able to be relocated, so it kind of forced our footprint a little bit smaller. In our subsequent conversations about the CCT, it forced our footprint a little bit smaller, so it became harder to generate the number of units in a 4 or 5 story development. As a result, as the footprint got smaller, it essentially came up a level, if you will, to accommodate the number of units to break even. That's one of the answers. As we looked at it, we also took a look at the master plan, and there's larger, bigger plans happening right behind us with regard to this new downtown or city center development, and the density that's being targeted or preferred. And we saw that I think that we're substantially lower than what's being proposed for the adjacent development that's coming right behind it. So, and I know that's still a lot of conversations to be had, but we didn't feel that we were overshadowing the colonnade, in all honesty. We felt that 2 stories was close. We didn't come in with a 16-story application, which I guess is supposedly by right, but that's not where we're headed. We felt that the proposed 6 stories was more in keeping with the scale that we have with the colonnades. Ours is a smaller footprint, 2 stories taller. Theirs is about 3 times the footprint and 2 stories lower. But I don't know if that answered your question or not.
Well, no, the reasoning makes sense, and I think it seems that the magic number is around 300 for any of these kinds of projects that we see. So, but the scale is immense. Like I said, colonnade is already pretty massive and large. So. This one is going to, 2 up that, or 1 up that, whatever. It's going to be pretty large, and so, as I recall, when we look, the time that I've been on this council, what I think the prominent feature that was supposed to be at this corner was supposed to be a tall office building.
Office building, correct.
That's very different, and the impacts of an office building, even a tall office building, very different than a dense residential project. So, that's just, so this right in, right out, which is going to be a downhill onto Great Seneca, seems like a perfect way to have a river when we have a big storm. We've got a lot of impervious area that you're creating. A lot of it exists already just because it's a parking lot. But, so, I was interested in hearing a little bit more about stormwater management, especially with that right in, right out drive aisle. It's probably, I think it's an elevation change of about 15 feet from that parking lot down to Great Seneca. And so how do you keep the water on the property instead of creating this river down Great Seneca into a new lane that you're creating that goes almost the full length from all the way down to Kentlands Boulevard?
Mr. Sesman, Mr. Intriago is not more than just our cursor operator here. He is a civil engineer on the project. Okay. So, Eduardo, you want to introduce yourself and answer the question?
Good evening, sir. My name is Eduardo Intriago, council members, good evening. I'm the civil engineer for the project. I've been working very closely with your staff, and I can tell you that right now we have conceptual and site development approval on which we have full ESD water quality volume requirement. So that means that once your site is behaving as it was in good conditions. So in other words, we're attenuating and cleaning the water before it goes out into the public system. That's been achieved, like I said, by different type of facilities called ESD facilities. And we infiltrate the water, attenuate the water, and throw it at a rate as woods in good conditions.
Mr. Intriago, is the flow of the water off-site going to be less than it is today?
Most definitely, sir.
I'm sorry. There are actually retention facilities on site that is actually part of mitigating that.
Okay.
Is that separate from your
Yeah.
question about water that might not be generated from the site,
Right.
but might be coming down the new acceleration, deceleration lane? Is that
As
what
far
you're
as the
talking
site
about?
entrance itself.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, yeah, you know, water's coming from everywhere, but I see the site is generating quite a bit, but also down Great Seneca.
When we went to visit MTA, did they say anything about water control measures that would come in conjunction with the CCT or the improvements associated with that?
No, well, when we go to get our access approval from the state, we will have to do a hydrology study that will address all those issues, and we'll have to meet the state standards, even if it's not water coming directly from our property, but coming from upstream. But there are standards that we would have to meet, and we would have to provide a drainage or whatever means necessary to prevent that from occurring. But that would all be part of the permit package when we get to that point.
So the last thing, I guess, is the new drive lane that actually combines an acceleration lane with a deceleration lane and another right-in, right-out at Main Street, where people making a right turn or people coming, going, well, I guess, southeast on Great Seneca who are going to the shopping center are also trying to get in that right lane to decelerate to turn on Main Street or Kentlands Boulevard. As well as buses. And people making that right turn are doing the same thing. They're crossing 2 lanes of traffic. Now it'll be 3 lanes of traffic to get over there. So I'm very concerned about the right in, right out, and how that. And I'm trying to figure out how SHA thought this was a good idea. And so,
well, I would just say I would balance that with one of the criticisms or complaints that we heard when we met with our neighbors was that the right turn movement off of Quince Orchard to southbound Great Seneca backs up because of that merge that was discussed earlier. And I believe we can eliminate that now, so it'd be just a straight shot through.
well, it mostly backs up because the light's too short. I mean, timing of the lights is a big problem, and timing the lights during different times of the day is a big problem. But yeah,
well, if you
that, so.
if you needed more information, Mr. Cook could do what they call gap studies. Basically, say the left turning movements from westbound to southbound. You know what the gaps would be to accommodate that. If that was something, I mean, our goal is to get you the information you need in order to make a decision.
Well, and to piggyback on that, I think what I'm sensing, having driven it and watched it and studied and planned, it's almost like a slingshot effect. You come off of Quince Orchard Road and come around to Great Seneca. What you're thinking about is getting up to speed, to highway speed, so you can merge on. And now what will happen is there's a curb cut in the right in, right out that will be about where you're trying to hit speed.
Right.
You know, which is a little bit troubling. I mean, at least it's counterintuitive to me to do that, but the state has their formulas and their analysis, and I'm sure you provided them some data too.
Right, and
But that's
you're
the crux of it. The other piece to that is right now it's bermed up to a point where I can imagine a curb cut being a little bit obscured for not so much the people turning out, but the people that are coming around the corner not realizing there's somebody's nose poking out, getting ready to go, and they don't really have any warning for them.
Right.
So I don't know if there's some topography changes that are going to happen as part of this that would help that, but that geometry, how much distance there is from that point where someone's going to try to, you know, put a little acceleration on to merge or to try to anticipate the traffic coming down Great Seneca.
Okay, it's more than, I don't know, what was the exact number? Okay.
That makes sense.
Yeah, the difference is where the driveway is going to be is further from the corner than where that right turn taper ends, where people have to get over and merge into the through lane. So what we're doing is by extending that, we are making that reaction area longer. And people, people coming around that corner, you're right, that's a slingshot. They fly around because they want to get up to speed because they've got to match the through traffic on 124 in that lane. With the continuous lane that we're installing, they can come in a little bit slower, and whether human nature allows them to do that or not, but they can get into that lane and then they have a greater distance because they have all the way until they get down to Main Street to get over and merge in with the through traffic. So it really actually makes the merging condition a lot better.
I don't know about that because, I mean, I think the propensity is for people to try to get over, because most people are trying to get to 270 anyway, so they're going to get over as quickly as possible, and they're going to be accelerating. So I'm not sure that, I mean, that would be nice in a perfect world, but I don't think that's what people are thinking about.
Well, we're willing to continue to work with the city to try and find the best solution possible, because neither us nor the colonnade want the alternative, which is us having to drive through the colonnade essentially to get out. That's not what we want to do.
Go ahead.
Just to switch gears a little bit. So we've seen in the slide presentation the footprint of where the elevated track of the CCT, future CCT will be, this yellow strip. But what we haven't seen, even though it sounds like architecturally and from an engineering standpoint, you've all made it work with SHA and MTA in terms of the location of the columns and the site distances. What we haven't seen is the aesthetic effect of what this might look like, and I realize we're years out from what an elevated track of the CCT might actually look like, but to get a sense of, you know, you've got this signature architecture that you're talking about placing along Great Seneca Highway. I mean, is it going to be blocked by this big elevated roadway that's going to be coming right across the front of the signature architecture? And I mean, how is that going to impact things like quality of life for the residents of this project, as well as just sort of the general aesthetic value of this architecture?
Can you gentlemen kind of give us the linear separation between the CCT and our building? And we probably have not done any kind of a photo montage in showing what it would look like, say, from the Meadowview property.
Right. Again, I'd have to go back and verify it, Dan, to be very honest with you. It's approximately 50 feet from the elevated track to the face of the building, but again, I need to verify that. The architecture itself was actually laid out both in general planning and the elevation to try to accommodate the curve and kind of as the track pulls away from the property. That's where you see the focal point start to emerge, if you will, addressing the corner. That's another reason why we thought it was really important to leave a lot of green area as much as we could on that corner to create a sense of open space there. But again, it's as Jody said, we're continuing to polish.
Okay. And I mean, do we know? I know you said there's enough clearance there for emergency vehicles and, you know, larger fire vehicles, but do we know what the proposed actual sort of precise height of that track will be as it compares to the facade of the building?
My understanding is we didn't cause the overpass to go up any higher. We just demonstrated that whatever they were setting it at, we could get underneath it, correct?
We have a clearance of approximately 20 feet.
Yeah, 20 feet. Okay. I'm just trying to get a sense of if I'm looking at the elevation from Great Seneca Highway, is the track going across the second floor of your building? Is it going across the third floor of your building? I'm just kind of trying
it would probably be going across between the second and the third floor, depending on its rise. Again, as we worked with the plans that were shared to us for the CCT, as Jody mentioned, we didn't cause it to go up or down. We just worked with the topography and the spot elevations that were provided to us and the track layout. And again, this could be part of the ongoing investigation for the property.
And then related to that, has your team looked at pedestrian connectivity issues there? I mean, I know there's a sidewalk or pedestrian pathway running along Great Seneca Highway on the edge of the property now. How is that going to be impacted? I mean, obviously, if you're able to continue to have a pedestrian pathway there, even with the elevated track, you're going to have a crosswalk at the location of the curb cut. But is it going to have to be moved in from the curb? Is it going to have to weave around the columns of the CCT? Do we have any sense of that yet, or is it too early?
We didn't, as far as, I'm sorry, is it okay to jump in, Jody? I like to talk, sorry. The sidewalks are actually pushed up closer towards the interior side of the project, away from Great Seneca Highway. They do kind of dip out there to go across the crosswalk, which would be at the entrance itself. Okay. In part, that's for visibility reasons, so we're not having people walking kind of off of blind corners. People are trying to pull it off the highway or off the road. Okay. But we are trying to maintain full interconnectivity between the commercial parcel down to our south and also to the colonnade side as well, so people can turn the whole corner. And we are maintaining, I believe, the sidewalks that are running along Quince Orchard.
Yes.
Okay, so those will remain.
Okay. And then the interior traffic pattern, shows this kind of what looks to me at least like a pretty tight S-curve, a two-way traffic S-curve as you're going, I guess, right, north or south along along the interior of the project next to parallel to Great Seneca Highway. Maybe from your traffic engineering perspective, you can talk about this, but just from the layman's eye, this looks like kind of a tight turn to go this way and then back out that way, and I
That
just
was
wanna
in
make sure
part dancing around the CCT
Right.
elements and trying to create the adequate turning radiuses for the vehicles.
We've actually increased the angle of those curves there, because we put turning templates on there to make sure trucks can get in for emergency access and vehicular for school buses, because the school buses would have to negotiate that to come in and pick the kids up. So we did put turning templates on there and adjusted the widths and the curve, the radiuses, to make sure that the bigger vehicles, couldn't make
I'd
that.
use this, the radii are generous in terms of being able to make them move. So it may look acute there, but it'd actually be better than you would normally have under normal design standards.
Okay, and just sort of at the southeastern end of that curve, there's sort of a three-way stop with the drive aisle that comes underneath the garage, coming out towards the curb cut, as well as this sort of north and south stops. Visibility okay there from coming out from this garage aisle? Seems like it's a little tight to be able to sort of look left if you're coming out of that garage aisle.
It is a little tight through there, but it's our intention that all three legs of that intersection are going to have stop signs, with the exception of the right in, right out coming in off of Great Seneca. So as you come in off of Great Seneca, you will have the right of way. You can turn left, turn right, or go straight. All other approaches would have stop signs.
Okay. I have a few other questions. So in looking through the 700-page packet, I struggled to find examples of one of the 9 3-bedroom units. And I was just wondering, I don't know, maybe they're on one of the floors that's not represented in the packet. I know there was a ground floor, but I couldn't find them, and I'm just wondering.
What we could do is, I'm not sure that your ability to zoom in on this. They really begin on floors 2 and going up.
Right.
And we're glad to provide the supplemental information as part of the ongoing design exercise with the colonnade. We're also looking at the upper level units, because we know they're impacted by stepping that facade back as well. So we are currently laying those out. So we're more than happy to provide any of the requested information you're looking for.
Appreciate getting a chance to look at that. And also, do you have numbers on what the average square footage is of the proposed studio and 1-bedroom and 2-bedroom?
They vary in size depending on the location within the building footprint itself. The studios are approximately, they vary, but probably a good average would be about 630 to 650 square feet for a studio.
Okay.
The 1-bedrooms are approximately 725 square feet. And again, there are a number of different unit types depending where it occurs, and we'll be glad to provide as much of that information as you'd like.
Okay. And then finally, this is getting a little bit even more into the weeds, probably not necessarily for an SDP process, but I did want to bring it up because of my experience having lived in the colonnade some years ago and addressing some of the challenges of living in a development like this in this location. And I actually lived in the smallest building of the colonnade, which is sort of right next to where the proposed project is. The proposal that you have presented shows an elevator bay in the smaller building. And I just want to get a sense that that's a commitment from you all, that there's actually going to be an elevator in that building.
The answer is yes. Currently, we have a total of 4 elevators that are planned.
Okay.
Actually, can I move the mouse on this again? Let's go. Actually, just go to 4. There you go. We have an elevator at both ends of the parking garage. So there's one right about up on the top side there, if you can see where the cursor is moving. There's another one on the other side of the parking garage. There's one on the main entrance lobby, and there is the one that you just mentioned, I believe, in the smaller building.
Right, that's the one that
I
saw.
So we felt that all 4 of those are critical.
Right.
And we have no intention to remove any of those.
Okay. And then I believe that I saw in the alignment between the parking deck and the residences that it looked like it was not exactly flush in some places, that there might have to be like half a staircase up or down.
They're on one side, on the, getting my bearings, on the west side. West side will be, if I can call it at level, at parking grade level. The other side, because of the ramping in the parking structure, there is some ramping system. So it is, both ends are fully accessible, but one, because of the climb on the parking garage, does need to use some rampway.
Okay, and the elevators will be accessible from folks parking in the garage to get into the
For
building?
all
through
levels, yes, sir.
Okay.
Depending which end they get off, there is a fully accessible path.
Okay. Just double checking, that's all the questions that I had for
Good
now.
questions.
Bear with me, I appreciate your patience. I believe that's it. Also, from my experience in the colonnade, I just wanted to throw in a word of advocacy for sub-metering of units.
Okay. Well, that does go with condominiums, so it kind of goes to turf, yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, resolved. Can I get a turn, Mr.
I appreciate the explanation that you gave about the program. My initial reaction was that the program was incredibly aggressive for such a small site. I think that's been clarified. I think outside of all the other issues that have been already brought up by the commission or the council members, the layout of the streets, I believe, prioritize vehicular traffic, but I don't know that they do pedestrian traffic. So two things that I would like to point out. I think that there's been a clear explanation about the curb radii utilized in the intersections, but I believe that those curves will actually encourage speed rather than discourage it. And I wonder what's the rationale for the drop-off and the island. I think that in itself can become problematic for the traffic circulation. And it's excellent for a truck or a large vehicle, but I think that in the normal scenario you will have more vehicular, average vehicular traffic. And to add the different things that I think that you should also take in consideration, I believe that Arch Place does a really good job accommodating on-street parking, which serves the double purpose of both traffic calming and providing eyes on the streets in terms of safety. So I think that I know that you have a very tight program and that you're probably trying to maximize the square footage of your building, but I would highly encourage the use of street parking in the remaining portion of Arch Place to provide those two items that I just mentioned. Likewise, I think, as right now, I just don't think that the island and the drop-off create a scenario for pedestrians. It rather creates this contradiction of a very high-density development with a very suburban approach to it.
Okay, I appreciate that.
Rob.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Gentlemen, thank you for the presentation. I think a lot of the concerns that have been expressed by the council members are my concerns as well. Just wanted to focus back in on a point that Councilmember Harris had raised. First, I didn't see in the packet what your timeline for construction is.
Beginning, you mean, or duration?
When optimally are you looking to start this project and to actually have folks moving in?
Just somebody give me an estimate?
I'm sorry. As far, I made a few notes. Sorry, I was making notes of what you all were saying, so I wouldn't forget it. You talked about the time frame, but I didn't hear what aspect of the time frame.
Well, the question is when, assuming that we complete all the development, the zoning approval process, give us a start time after that.
We figured the design time, once we have initial approvals, that we would probably be in the design processes probably for 6 to 8 months, then it'd go into permitting for site and building. And we figured that the construction would probably be a little over a year.
So would you estimate would be starting in spring of 2018?
That would be a good presumption, assuming approvals.
Yeah, so a year to go through your, finish out the year going through your process for both this step plus site plan, preliminary plan after that, plus the design phase and pulling permits for first or second quarter of 2018, and then a year to build.
Okay. And the reason I asked that question is, again, I'm going to focus in on something that Councilmember Harris was talking about, is the concern about the adequate public facilities, particularly as they relate to schools. As you see in the packet, I'm sure has been discussed by various individuals. The schools in the area are overcrowded. One particular school, Richard Carson, is one of the most overcrowded. It's currently at levels that are above the moratorium level. I know you're looking 5 years out, and for some reason the numbers dip just below the 150% moratorium level. And so I would just commend to you in conducting your analysis that's one of my concerns, and that I'll commend you that in looking at the local markets, what we've seen, or what I've seen, is that the Kentland's generation rates are higher than what the counties are. And when you're so close to the moratorium level, you're looking to add seats to an already overcrowded school, and it looks like you're in a time frame that would predate the planned addition onto Dufif, which is out there to, at least proposed by MCPS, to relieve some of the capacity issues at Rachel Carson. So I'll just throw that out there as a concern of mine that I'd like to see addressed.
Yes, sir.
Can I weigh in with another question? Kind of unrelated to anything we've talked about so far, for a change of pace. You know, there seems to be a strong market for apartments in the region at this point, and we're hearing a lot from apartment developers all over the city for various projects. And one of the things that has become clear is that there are some organizations that build apartments and then run them, and then there's others that build them and sell them off. And in general, you know, what we want to have, if we're going to have apartments, is we want to have nice apartments, not just next year, but 20 years from now as well. So what would the plan be for this particular site? Who would be actually managing and owning the property going forward? Is this something that gets built and sold off somewhere, or what's the plan?
Somebody can help me, but I'm going to say that the gentlemen who own the property several years wish to build, own, and they would contract to have it managed, but they would still be here and be on-site, hands-on control.
Do they have a background in doing this sort of thing? Do they do it elsewhere?
I can ask them to come up and answer that question if you'd like.
All right, thank you.
Doctor, Free?
Hi, good evening. My name is Preet Akhar. I've been in hospitality business for many years, so I understand, you know, how important is it for people in the community to have a good living standards and spaces, and so we are taking all that into consideration. We will be having a professionally managed management company to manage the apartments, and we like to make it a good community for the neighbors and for the people who come into the apartments. And you know, there is a lot of other apartments out there, so we have to do something which is a little bit better or more, you know, accommodating. So we are looking into all the different aspects of how we're going to, you know, manage it and keep it going. So we want to hold on to the property. Does it answer the question, or?
Part of it, sure.
Okay.
Well, let me do maybe a more anecdotal answer, and that is, if this was a speculative venture, these gentlemen would have been gone 2 years ago. Ms. Schwartz will tell you how long we've been around City Hall monitoring your adequate public facilities ordinance with schools, which has always been the impediment to moving forward the project. And if anybody was just in this for the money to make a quick buck and get out, these gentlemen would have gone a long time ago. They've owned the land for a long time, and they want to basically continue to control it.
If I can interject too, Mr. Harris, also that decision for a long-term hold on the property is also, so it's driving the materials. You'll see there's a lot of masonry, a lot of very permanent materials that are being used.
Right.
As a result, we're not entertaining cementitious siding and other things that people take shortcuts on in other developments. So we are looking for some very long-term solution materials, great life cycle.
All right, thanks. That's very important.
Bill?
Yeah. I've got one or two sort of
little slightly more technical questions that came up as I was looking through the packet. I think a number of people have touched on the issues with site circulation in trucks. My one question, my first question is related to loading and unloading of people who are moving in. The 2 truck loading zones by the parking garage seem, from a circulation standpoint, pretty easy if assuming a lot of the people who move into these apartments, especially with a mix of studios and 1-bedrooms, are going down to your local U-Haul and renting a truck and may or may not be professional truck drivers. The two loading zones by the parking garage seem pretty easy. The one off of the circle, when I was looking at the turning studies that were included in the packet, look very challenging for somebody to get into without having the front end of their truck up on one curb or the back end of their truck up on another. So I'd question the practicality of that from a move-in, move-out standpoint, and just how the site circulation works. Second question that maybe you can help shed some light on. You touched briefly in your presentation on trash, the trash procedures, and the use of trash rooms. What is the intended sort of way you're handling trash pickup? There's a number of other apartment buildings around the city that have trash rooms or have smaller dumpsters in trash rooms, and on trash day they wheel them out on the sidewalk or wheel them out, by the loading dock, and they come and get picked up. That may work for the 2 near the parking garage that are sort of on the back. The one on the smaller building along Arch Place, what's the plan?
We're planning on off-peak pickup on those areas. We know that that's not something to occur when traffic is at its greatest on Arch Place. We honestly it's just off-peak is all I can answer right now.
Because I'm just looking at it, and there's no loading zone. So the only way you could get a trash truck to pick up a small roll-off dumpster is to roll it out across the sidewalk and into the middle of the street.
Well, right. If the truck is not currently parallel parked on the curb. But that might go back to answer the other question with regard to what do we do with regard to any parking on Arch Place. Our initial thought, honestly, was not to provide it because we saw that's in meeting with the Colonnade, we found that their greatest aggravation, aside from traffic coming through Arch Place, was the on-street parking creates more chaos for them than anything else and more hazardous conditions. So we honestly thought that we'd eliminate that, but it looks like we might need to go back and revisit that to accommodate some of these other functions as well. That's part of our ongoing study, I guess.
I guess that, and it's not quite clear from the materials that I saw in the packet, but from one of the renderings, sort of the photo montages, looking up Arch Place from within Colonnade.
Right.
What is the difference in building face to building face width between what's in your project and what's in the Colonnade? Are they similar widths, or?
Our widths are probably a little bit greater. Again, most of our study has been along the face of our development where it abuts the colonnades. And I think the site section that Scott had presented earlier, and I'll just do it off the top of my memory, I think we had 24 feet of street and roughly 14 to 15 feet on either side for the sidewalk area, and that was along Granite Place 2. So we're probably 55 to 56 feet on average. And again, it varies because the buildings pop in and out a little bit with some variation. It's greater as it gets towards Quince Orchard. I believe at that point we're at 58 plus feet between them. The clear distance between our 2 buildings on Arch Place, yet again, it varies because of the variation in the facade, but it's approximately 50 to 52 feet.
Just to add a side note, I used to be a resident of the Colonnade, and I was a member of Condo 5, and I never had an issue with the parking, so I think that you should really take a look at that.
And we're glad to do that. Honestly, I wasn't trying to be argumentative.
We should talk about sub-metering.
Is parking going to be controlled? Will it be controlled access to parking?
Great question. The answer is yes in part, and yes for all of it, but different measures of controlled access and knowing who's parking there. As Joni had mentioned earlier, there is a cross parking easement, getting the right terminology, that we have a number of parking spaces that we need to make available to them. We are looking to be able to issue like a sticker. Again, it goes back to the management company's decision on how it is to be handled, but we want them to register their vehicles. We'll make sure that whether it's through our management office or one that we work with through the Colonnade, that those parking spaces will be managed and we'll have an idea who's parking in them. Within the parking garage itself, because of the nature, I'm going to reach across you, Glenn, so I'm sorry, I'm going to use the mouse on this. There's that throughway in the parking garage here. Because of what it's doing by creating that throughway, it's actually divided our parking garage into two. There is an entrance at the top side that goes and winds up through the development, and there's other one down here that goes down and we'll call it the basement level. The thought would be that what's not available in the unsecured parking, if I can call it that, that's part of that travel way, would be made up in that lower level of the parking. There would be a gate arm, but again, the idea is that whether it's a code or whatever the end solution is for maintaining the security, they would be available for the guest parking as well. And I think that our intent would be that to use the upper levels predominantly for the residents themselves.
Just another quick question. Is there a plan, maybe I'm getting a little esoteric here, but is there a plan to have visual monitors, like cameras in the parking lot for security?
That's actually a very big thing that we've been talking about is the site security. Again, we're not at that point where we really have decided upon all the details, but the intent is to be able to use the closed circuit TV system and monitors so that the property security can actually keep an eye on all the, we'll call it the nooks and crannies in the development.
No, just, I mean, when you have a 6-story parking deck and people are there in and out all hours of the night, it becomes a security issue.
I agree. It's an ongoing discussion. We haven't honestly made it that far yet.
Okay.
So I'm still anticipating some issues with the circulation on and off the site. So kind of to prep for that, what are the assumptions you've made about where the predominant traffic patterns are going to develop around this? For peak hours, just, generally speaking, what the pattern's going to start to look like if this site's fully occupied?
Okay, basically what we did, we assumed what we determined to be the existing traffic patterns that we see coming out of the colonnade, which is a normal practice for us since, we don't really know who the residents are going to be at this point. So what we do is we look at existing traffic patterns in the area. We've got a nice project sitting right next door to us. It gives us a good idea of how many people are going out to Quinn's Orchard Road for granted, or how many people are going over Arch to Booth, and which way they're going on Booth. So we based our distribution on what's happening from the colonnade today, and that's normal, and it just so happens this one's a little easier because we've got the same use sitting right next to us, and the trips are confined to just certain ways of getting in and out.
So what does it look like? Where do you think the predominant AM, PM hit's going to be?
Give me 1 second here.
And while he's looking, I think, ultimately we're going to need, if not an STP, then an FP, we're going to need diagrams for auto movement with some numbers attached, numbers and times attached, and we're going to need bicycle, we're going to need pedestrian. And I think that your bicycle and pedestrian diagrams are going to show some of your holes in this property flow. So,
right. We showed, just as a rough figure, we showed approximately 50% of the traffic to and from the south on Great Seneca, and about 30% to the east on 124. And then
that's AM?
It's overall, we use the same distribution because your peak in the AM is going out, and then your peak in the evening is coming back supposedly from the same place. So,
well, okay. So what I'm leading up to is the problem that you don't have fully functioning intersections in and out of here. You're forcing people right or left. So there's going to be a shift in which way they can go or can come from in those hours.
Right, but that was all taken into consideration when we looked at the overall percentages. We had to see how they would get off of our site.
You sort of blended it then.
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
Go ahead. We were just over here sort of debating on Granite Place 2, the portion that dead ends into Quince Orchard Road where there isn't a curb cut. Sort of a little alleyway, if you will.
That's where the original right-in, right-out was for that property. It was right there.
That is correct. Exactly.
Right. What is we're trying to figure out what the rendering represents, or what the drawing represents now. It looks like it might be truck parking or something. I'm not sure what it is.
That currently was originally designated, I guess, as a dumpster pad location. It's a paved area. Currently, it looks like it's mainly used as a parking space for, I think, one of the business tenants that are in there. At this point, we weren't looking to make it go away. There has been some discussion with the Colonnade residents that maybe we might be able to potentially take that area and maybe make it more green space and maybe an area for the dogs.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
A little more green space opportunity there.
There's one more question. So one of the features of the Colonnade, when in the spirit of mixed use, was to have some commercial and retail space. There's several thousand feet on the first floor, the ground level of the Colonnade. Is there any potential that some of the residential space would become commercial space available to professionals or?
Our current plan is no, it's not. I think in light of the fact that it is there in the Colonnade now, we're not looking to compete with that. And we also are aware that I guess Saul next door is looking to do quite a bit of commercial space, and I don't think that we'd be able to compete with that either.
All right, did we satisfy all the questions up here?
For tonight.
For tonight. So we're gonna go open this up to the public. For anybody who'd like to comment on this, we ask that you state your name and address or neighborhood for the record. Keep your comments to no more than 3 minutes. When your time's down to 30 seconds, the timer will beep and turn yellow, and when it's up, it'll beep and turn red. Who would like to be the first speaker?
And I'll just say, we'll be available at the end if you want to ask us any other questions, but I don't see us doing a rebuttal presentation, just available to answer questions. Thanks.
What to expect
We're
from
not
the
going to vote on
process.
this tonight, right?
No.
Well, it's about how long to leave the record open. That's-
Yeah, we'll get to that. Let's go to the public first. Please, come on up.
It's pretty short.
Just grab that microphone.
Oh,
There you
sorry,
go.
a
There you
little
go.
shorter. Name and address?
Yes.
My name is Magda Papayuanu, and I live at 16 Granite Place. Thank you for letting me speak tonight. I've had the privilege of growing up in the Kentlands and attending Quince Orchard High School. I recently graduated from college, and as soon as I could, came right back to the neighborhood. Sorry, I'm a little nervous. There are many problems that come with this new construction. I'm sure you all haven't had the opportunity to explore this specific area, but perhaps you have visited the Kentlands neighborhood. It's beautiful green spaces and lakes, it's restaurants and small boutique shops. I don't believe this new building will add to our community. Sorry. I believe that there are other ideas that would be more beneficial to the city and to the Kentlands. Perhaps an old folks' home, which would lower traffic and children in the overcrowded schools, or perhaps a more refined area with green space, maybe a park, and an updated restaurant. I dreamed of raising my own children growing up in this neighborhood, and that's partially why I returned here immediately after graduating college. I wanted to find a job in the area and build a foundation to raise my family in the city of Gaithersburg, and specifically the Kentlands neighborhood. If the Kentlands makes this change, I'm not sure it would maintain its personality. And I feel strongly that this change will bring others similar to it. Another thing I'd like to share is the green space that they've talked about, as probably many of you have not been to this specific area. There's a large field of green space there currently that would be gone. The remaining green space is sloping and leads directly to the road. And the green space that you saw that is behind the Kmart area is full of trees. Now, I have a dog, and I use that green space often to play Frisbee. But without it, there will be limited green space for members of the Colonnade to bring their pets, and I worry about new families moving into this complex with their own pets. I feel like the green space will be completely diminished as far as pets and the health and safety of the pets with all the cleanup in that area. I just wanted to say that my reasons for speaking tonight are not for profit. They're to protect my neighborhood and the city of Gaithersburg. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Aaron Rosenzweig. I live in Wesley with my wife, children, and chickens. I don't see why we keep building these high-rises and we don't fill them. We have high-rise right here next to the railroad tracks. I don't know whose Dane Bramaged idea was that, you know, poor people need to sleep too. Yeah, it's, until you start filling up some of these places we already have, I don't think you should entertain or lead these people on. You know, they're doing a good job trying to be developers and trying to maximize things, but you guys need to stop. You know, you're talking about monuments. What is the city about? It's the fairgrounds is the biggest monument of this city. The entire Montgomery County Fairgrounds is right here in Gaithersburg. We used to have 400 dairy farms. The museum happens to be in Germantown because we don't give a damn. Now, I want everybody to know that the council has put on a good show tonight for most of us.
Please address us.
There's no rule that I can't talk to the people that are in this room. So you be quiet.
Aaron, I just paused your time. Now listen, we'd like to hear what you have to say. We ask that you maintain civility and respect for the place that you are. Address us. Now, please go ahead.
It's fortunate that you all came and filled this room. Had you not filled this room, you'd see a different story. And I encourage you to keep coming, because if you don't, the moment you don't come, they'll have a different tune. We recently passed the Johnson annexation across the street with 2 out of 5 votes, illegally, without a legislative process. We violated our city charter, we violated state laws, and we continue to do so. You have to keep vigilant, because our council members are not working in our best interests. I've seen it time and time again. So you keep coming here, you keep listening, you keep showing what's important to you. Your letters do not count. Your bodies here speak volumes. Thank you, everyone, for coming out tonight.
Next speaker.
Hi, good evening. My name is Carol Kaplan. I live at 16 Granite. I think one thing that comes to mind as I've listened to the proceedings here tonight reminds me of an old saying that I think that you've probably heard before. It's about trying to pack 10 pounds of material into a 5-pound bag. As you saw from the drawings, this massive development uses up every square inch of available property without hardly accommodating pedestrians or people with pets. When I walk out of my door on Granite Place, what I now see is a restaurant and a field and the street. I will see a 4 or 5 story brick wall. Thank you. My wonderful neighbors. This is not why I moved to this area and purchased a home here. In fact, as I speak to you tonight, I look at the dais here and I see the symbol of the city of Gaithersburg, which is a tree. It's not a huge, massive apartment building. It is not what we want visitors to see when they come to the intersection of Quince Orchard and Great Seneca, is the symbol of our city, the big, massive apartment complex. Apartment complexes are great, but this is about the Kentlands and the city of Gaithersburg. I didn't move there to live in an urban environment where there is nothing but concrete and bricks. I came there to have a suburban environment that was walkable, where there was green space and trees. One thing that I'm most concerned about as a dog owner is the fact that this apartment complex provides virtually no green space. There's no grass. Where are the dog owners there going to come and walk their pets? They're going to be coming onto our property. I want to thank you all. I was impressed with the questions that you asked, and I just ask you to please make sure you are our representatives, to make sure that the applicant responds to those questions and concerns that you've expressed. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else who'd like to speak, feel free to line up behind Mr. Arkin here.
Somebody left their glasses.
Someone leave their glasses?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Your Honor and Mayor, Your Honor and members of the council, members of the Planning Commission. Richard Arkin, 121 Selby Street. I don't live in the Colonnade. I've thought about living in the Colonnade. As I get older, I am thinking more and more about downsizing from the kind of house that I live in. So I have a personal interest in the kinds of mixed multifamily housing you're designing for the community. I have to say that I agree with the comments that have come from members of the council and the Planning Commission and from members of the public about the density and the mass of this project. It is, as proposed, it's extremely dense. It is probably one of the most dense, if not the densest, multifamily housing proposals or existing developments in the city. And I think, as has been said before this evening, they're just trying to do too much on too small a space. I was present at the August meeting with the Kentland Citizens Assembly, in which the developers made their proposal. There were a number of questions that were raised at that meeting which have not been addressed. There were a number of suggestions that were made at that meeting which have not been responded to. And I would suggest that they look back at what happened at that meeting and perhaps sharing that with the council. One of my major concerns, and I have others that I think I'll have to give you in writing, but one of my major concerns is the traffic circulation. You have to look beyond the periphery of this site for where the traffic is ultimately going to go. If you live on the site and you want to go to Old Town, if you want to go to a meeting here, you'll have to go around Robin Hood's barn many times because of all the entrances are right in, right out. You will have to go either through the Colonnade or through Great Seneca, the Saul property next door. There's no other way to get in or out of the property and get to downtown Gaithersburg. The former Archstone property, the Colonnade, the streets were not built to city standards. They are much more narrow than city streets normally are. In addition, there's an issue of utilities and other conduits beneath the road and the thickness of the road, the way the road was constructed, that have to be addressed. What's going to happen to the Colonnade if you have heavy trucks going in and out of Arch Street? And
Dick, you'll have to send us the rest of your comments in writing, which we will be glad to receive. At the end of tonight's hearing, we'll announce when the record will close. And this goes for anybody else. If you have more than 3 minutes worth of testimony you'd like to give, everything that you submit in writing will be included in the record and considered just the same as oral testimony. And that goes for anybody who'd prefer to give written testimony. So thank you very much, and we'll look forward to receiving the rest. Please, come on up.
So my name is Susanna Reed. I am the owner of 16 Granite Place, number 486. So my condo is the top floor looking directly out to this property where that's going to be built. Mr. Harris, I certainly appreciate you bringing up the idea of the school system and what the impact will be to that. I actually brought the numbers with me of the reports, and the only reason that we're here even talking about this is because for some reason in 5 years the proposed capacity for Rachel Carson is going to drop down to 149.6%. If it was at 150%, which would be 2 more students, there'd be a moratorium on development and we wouldn't even be here talking about this project. So the proposed development is going to add 20 more students to a school that is already way over capacity, and before the plans for expanding DeFeef could have any impact. So I think that is a major, major consideration and should be the #1 reason why this development should not be built. Beyond that, looking at the personal impact to me, I'm certainly concerned that 30 feet away there is going to be a structure that is 20 feet taller than mine, cutting off all light to my property. I'm also concerned about the impact to my property values, which already we have seen since the announcement of these public hearings, condos staying on the market longer on the MLS. We've also seen a 3.5% decline in the list price of units of my same floor plan. So that's personally how it's going to affect me. Beyond that, I looked at the traffic analysis and the studies that were done. I think they are certainly underestimating the amount of traffic that's going to be turning in the evenings. We've talked a lot about morning traffic. We haven't really talked about the evening peak traffic. So turning onto Great Seneca, as well as the fact that the amount of traffic proposed on Arch Place is going to double from what it currently is. That is a very, very, very narrow road, as I'm sure 2 of you who have lived in the Colonnade know, with parking on both sides, imagining all of the traffic doubling on that street. So that's all I have to
Thanks.
say.
I just want to make clear to everybody, we've all been there. We've all been. We know Kentlands very well. We all know the property very well. Please come on up.
My name is Craig Heinbach. I live in Melda Square, 1 Melmark Court. My main concern is the traffic external to the built-in area. In a mobility assessment report of 2014, the corner of Great Seneca and Quince Orchard was rated number 40 in terms of congestion in Montgomery County and rated an F for morning and evening traffic. And the recommendation was that any development be carefully considered with respect to traffic. I believe that the VLC, I forget now what it stands for, is a first level take a look at things, and there are additional levels that can be done. I recommend that the additional levels be done. One concern I have is that people who want to go north would come out on Great Seneca with the south exit and make a U-turn at the first light. That's commonly done coming out of the shopping center. And coming out of the shopping center, 1 or 2 cars every once in a while isn't so bad, but if you have 100 people doing it in rush hour, it could really congest things. So it's not just the exits to the area that's a concern, but it's how are they going to get going north or east or west? Are they going to cross traffic on Prince Orchard, making a left turn? Do they cross 2 lanes of traffic? How do they go the other way? How do they go north? And coming home, it's the same issue. There are dominoes that fall. I note that number 8 is Great Seneca and Muddy Branch, and if half the traffic, they said, is headed in that direction, it could only make things worse. It certainly won't make things better. The only other thing I'd like to say is that I did a blow-up of one of their handouts looking at a studio apartment, and the studio apartment was the size of 2 parking spots. It seemed kind of small to me. I don't know how many square feet that is, but this is from their presentation. That's all I have to say.
All right, thank you. Next speaker, please.
Mayor Ashman, council members, thank you very much.
in particular those of you who have lived in the Kentlands and in the colonies.
Please, before you go on, please state your name. And
I'm sorry, my
address.
name is Henry Musicar, 8 Granite Place.
Thank you.
And I know at least one of you have actually lived at 8 Granite Place, and so I think that you'll appreciate the situation that we are in. I'm a resident of the Colonnades, and don't have any presentations, unlike the esteemed developers here who have great intentions. But intentions are not enough. We don't have enough on paper, I believe, to go forwards. I'm an IT security analyst. We don't deal with intentions. Meeting minimum requirements is not enough for something like this. We need to build to fail. And I have not heard anybody addressing what would happen if we've been assured that there won't be a lot of traffic through the Kentlands, through the Colonnades, which we just don't see how that's going to happen, that there won't be a lot of traffic. And we don't see that there won't be impact on the schools. Let's think that maybe it will happen. What are the plans to remedy those if they do in fact occur? I believe that that's what the council must address, or you aren't really fulfilling your responsibility in really reviewing this project as responsibly as I know you want to. The negative impact to the community can be extraordinary, and I understand that there are plans to fix some of these things. I have not heard one actual plan. I've heard tell that they would be fixed if there was a lot of traffic, if there are problems with the schools. What would actually be done? That's your responsibility, and thank you for dealing with it.
Thank you.
Jim McNulty from Saybrook. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, members of council, members of the Planning Commission. I do want to compliment everybody on the very thoughtful questions that you've been asked. I know not everybody appreciates all the work that you've been doing, but in just reading through the record and hearing the questions that have been asked and the presentation from the applicants, everybody I think is doing their very best on this. I first discovered the Kentlands when I moved to Up County in the year 2000. I lived in Germantown, and my wife and I had been to the restaurant that was on the pad over the years at the different stages, and always commented on how difficult it was to get to and why it didn't become a regular place. As a HOA president, I completely understand the concerns of the people who live in the colonnade, and especially with regard to property values and losing sunlight, which are certainly things that condo owners, when you only have windows on one side, certainly rely upon. It does seem to be a very, very dense neighborhood, particularly knowing the additional development that is being considered for the adjacent commercial space. And I actually wanted to ask a question more for my own edification and for the public as well. As the studies that are being done with regard to the schools, and particularly the overcrowding at Quince Orchard, and hearing that the difference in percentages is only 2 pupils is rather surprising and concerning. I want to ask if the study that is done, is it within a vacuum, or does it take into consideration the other development that is out there, particularly with the Johnson property? Because as these numbers are being put forward, it's saying that it's going to be within the values. But we already know that there are a couple other development proposals that are out there, and I just don't know personally whether those percentage projections include those other things that are in the pipeline and may not necessarily be included in the master plan, because that would take that percentage well over that amount, and I think that would raise even more alarms than are being raised right now, being right up against that level. Now, I may be wrong, and it may be already included, so I appreciate your educating us on that. 30 seconds. I completely understand the applicants trying to maximize the profit, yes, from their property. It is their property, but I think the council and the commission are doing their best to weigh the impact that it's going to have on the rest of the city and the neighbors. And I would look forward to hearing the rest of the discussion as these questions get answered. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Jim, because I happen to know the answer to your question about the school numbers, the numbers are generated by MCPS as part of their capital planning process, and at least as it used to be, they count things that have approval, that have approvals. So even if it's just master planned, the numbers that could come from something before there is an application approved are not counted into MCPS's numbers.
Can I jump in with one other response to Jim, which is the Johnson property actually feeds into a different elementary school. So it's not like we're saying, well, one project puts you over the top or puts you just under and another one doesn't. We don't do the math that way. The Johnson property feeds into Thurgood Marshall, right?
Right.
So,
but also,
but we can talk more about what's happening with the schools and what the options are. I'd actually have some remarks prepared from the mayor and council, which comes after that, in case anybody's still in the room by that point.
and I'm sorry, we're going to get you in a sec. Regarding the Johnson property in particular, there's not a development application before us. So any numbers that could be generated at some point from the Johnson property are not being factored in by MCPS at this point. Yes, please go right ahead.
Hi, my name is Clara Williams. I'm at 23 Arch. So I have a building that I'm going to be facing every day. So I'm quite concerned about this project. I do believe that it'll negatively impact the Colonnade and Kentlands. And we've talked about traffic, and I appreciate all of the comments that you have said to them about the traffic pattern problems, the school. Apparently, we're over on the schools as well, so this is going to impact our school population. I wish we were at 150%, this person was saying. And the other thing that it was made clear to me that this is all about profit as well. They have to make a certain number, and I think when you have that as your goal, you're not really considering the community. But I thank you all for answering those questions about the community and making sure to keep them to task to continue to keep Kentlands the community that I bought a condo for. I bought it so that I have a good community, that my value would stay good, that I wouldn't be like right next to a building that's going to be right there in my face. So I appreciate that you're asking those questions. I didn't think about the garbage, but that's another thing. I think we really need to consider. I don't want to come out of my building and have these garbage cans just pulled out because I'm right there, and I think it's also not good to have garbage out. It attracts rodents, and we don't want to attract that type of thing. So, and talked about security. I think that's important. Parking. The other thing, snow removal. I mean, I think if we ever get the snow that we had before, where are we going to put it now that we have a big building there? So I think we really need to ask questions about the snow removal that is planned. I know we're going to share some of that, I guess, but I think there need to be some coordination. But I moved to this community because it's owner-based community. It's kind of suburban. You have some room. But right now, it's just a little bit too dense, and I think we should definitely consider whatever we can to make it less dense if we can. So I appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I'm sure, by the way, you'll find a lot of agreement up here about not wanting garbage all over the place. Please, go right ahead.
Hi, my name is Greg Littell. I live at 230 Spectrum Avenue. I would be one of those people who'd be interested in renting an apartment here. So I thought I'd show up and just give my 2 cents. I think so far the project is a really good jumping off point, but there's a lot of negotiation that needs to happen before this can really become a part of Kentlands and a part of Kentlands that really embodies the Kentlands spirit. Kentlands was always designed to be an urban place. The strip mall was not supposed to stay there forever. Strip malls around the country aren't doing so hot. I don't want to see a crappy strip mall in the middle of this community. The corner's never really been a viable commercial area, but with Saul and their potential plans to redevelop, I think we really need to include a lot of the aspects that are missing from this in their development. If they're going to redevelop, I think it'd be a great place to see a new elementary school to satisfy a lot of these needs. I think they also need to respect the colonnade better. The step back is a good start, but I think matching the same height as the colonnade on that side would be much more appropriate, to be more respectful to them, give them better light, and match like with like. I think the other important thing is open space, because this corner, we're backing ourselves into a corner in Kentlands. And open space is a really big concern, especially green space, nice trees, street trees. I think that it definitely needs to be considered more. And the design of the building needs to fit the character of the neighborhood better. I think it looks like a very modern, very large apartment building. I think it'd be great to see something that's more classical, that fits in with the neighborhood, that just, again, embodies the spirit of Kentlands. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Joe Allen, 641B Main Street. I've been a Kentlands resident for almost 15 years now. Started in an apartment at Beacon Place, went to the Colonnade, and then went to a 2/2. So I've been in every one part of this neighborhood. Have accessed, when I lived there, mostly through the Saul property. It was the most logical place because you could go either direction. Most of the time I use 124 to get out because Great Seneca is actually more congested. 124 is easier to get to 270 if anybody's ever looking for that. I think the density of this is quite large, but it is in keeping with the vision of the Kentlands downtown. We do need more residents here to support the downtown commercial area. I am disappointed with the architecture of this particular proposal. It is massive. It does not break up. You can look at Pike and Rose, you can look at Crown, you can look up almost any other neo-traditional development that even has 5 or 6 stories, and none of them look like this. This looks like a modern office building with just a huge mass, and I think that's going to be part of the concerns of folks that are nearby. I also would say that every one of the comments that have been made tonight was made against the Colonnade when it was first put forward. Every one of them. And I was the one standing up here saying, no, I want to live there. But I want people to respect the neighborhood as well. And so some of the comments on green space or having actual streetscapes that you want to be on, that has to do with architecture, that has to do with placemaking, on-street parking, bicycle parking that's not in the back of the parking deck. All these little things that right now I think are overlooked in the plan. I know we're at SDP level, but I think every one of the comments tonight on traffic circulation, on scale, on pedestrian character have been overlooked just to get the density. And I think it can be put there. It just needs to be coordinated better. I would be interested in how this connects with the Saul property. We don't know what's coming. I know the city's met with Saul, but I really lack the context to understand how the street grid is going to really work and how it's going to function. Right now it's an isolated corner. I think the other thing that I am concerned about is the parking garage and its screening. Eventually it will face something, hopefully on the Saul property that, maybe it's another parking garage, but it should look attractive. Right now I'm looking at the Metamune garage going at the Vista at the end of Market Street, and I'm not sure why, and nobody commented on having a parking garage sticking up above neo-traditional
Wait a minute,
Main Street.
I talked a lot about
He
it.
did talk
Good.
about it. So all of these things I think can be addressed. It is an important property. It is a cornerstone of Kentlands, and I would like to see it move forward, but I want to see it move forward thoughtfully. Lastly, I would say on the schools, we do need additional students, not less, to get a longer term solution from MCPS, and I'm encouraged that this is moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any other, please, come on up.
Good evening. My name is Ashley Doyle. I'm a resident of the Colonnade and also a teacher in the county. So I come from several perspectives. One, a homeowner. I've lived there for about 5 years, and I'm glad to see former neighbors and all of us here in the city of Gaithersburg. I want to thank you for your thoughtful questions earlier. I think that was very helpful for some clarification. For several reasons, I think that this property doesn't mirror the image of the Kentlands, and one of the reasons I moved here from Bethesda was for the green space and for the common areas that there are in the Kentlands. Part of my understanding of the Kentlands vision is that there is the commercial down below and then the residence up above, as well as a similar facade throughout all of the Kentlands for the unified vision. And I think that the proposal that we've seen has some of those features, but it's lacking in that commonalities that we have seen throughout the Kentlands and was part of the initial plan or the master plan when thinking about how everything had to appear the same way throughout all the Kentlands, and we want to make sure that everything meets that same level. In terms of the schools, I think we've talked about that at length. I echo a lot of the concerns that I've heard today. I know that other concerns that weren't mentioned today were about busing and with students in the county. I spoke about this with the Johnson property previously, but I think you all know that the bus depot is closing that we have in this area. And I don't know yet if there's a new location for that site as of yet. So that's a current problem that we are faced with for our students and our families. With the increase of traffic that we all experience on a day-to-day basis, it's not getting any better. So I think we need to really think of what are we going to do to make these situations better and make Gaithersburg continue to be a great place to live, so that we're not thinking about moving elsewhere. Because right now, I'm starting to think about moving elsewhere and leaving Gaithersburg because it is not where I wanted to be when I purchased my place 5 years ago. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any other speakers from the public tonight? Not seeing any. So again, any of you or any of your neighbors or anybody watching is welcome to submit testimony for the record. We're glad to consider it. The applicant's team here has heard what the public had to say. I want to offer you the opportunity if you'd like to speak to any of the concerns that you've heard. But not to put you on the spot, if you'd prefer to give some thought and give it to us in writing, or what would you like to do?
I'm trying to get my cues here. I thought we've been here a long time. I think we've covered a lot of ground. I don't think anything needs to be said unless one of you gentlemen.
Just if I can, just a soft comment, and just in general, similar to what we've done in all our meetings with the Colonnade is take a lot of notes to understand what their concerns are so we can start to address them or begin to better address them. It's a continuing process. I know this isn't an end all right now. We're not turning around and trying to build this next week. I understand there's an approval process. We're going to continue to go through the project. We're looking to improve on each of the areas that we just talked about. So I do appreciate the input. A lot of it is things that we've heard before in the last 6 meetings we had with the Colonnade. There is definitely a recurring theme, and we will continue to look at those things.
Okay. And I'd like to invite John Schlichting, our Director of Planning and Code Administration, to sort of summarize or go over how guided you as staff feel from the back and forth here.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I have 15 pages of notes from tonight's testimony. So I do want to run through about 6 items which specifically came out during your discussion before the public testimony that we need to get back to you all on. And one is more study on the right in, right out off of Great Seneca Highway. The second is a visual of the Quarter Cities Transitway in front of the Great Seneca Highway architecture. The location of the 3-bedroom units within the complex. There was a concern from Rusali about the island and the drop-off being not pedestrian friendly and being more suburban. There are issues that we need to address on loading and trash pickup. And then also, Matt, you mentioned vehicular pedestrian and bicycle diagrams. So those are sort of the big picture issues that I had picked up during that discussion. I think this is the opportunity to give us more direction on where we should go for the next steps.
And you have included pedestrian flow and I don't know if anybody up here mentioned
green space.
Green space, bike.
I was gonna kind of give it maybe a macro framework, and it sort of goes like this. In the by right zoning, you could imagine a project like this happening because it would have complied with setbacks and height restrictions and various math and metrics like that. And one of the things about MXD is that it comes with a story behind it about how it's something a little bit better than just a by right calculation. It's something that it enhances the city at large. It does something to enhance and respond to its neighbors. It does something to sort of fulfill an overall vision for the area. And as I look at it, yeah, it kind of meets all of the minimum standards, and I think that's what we kind of heard. You were saying this is sort of what we need to hit this key count for our room count or unit count to make a budget work. We need to, there's all these sort of things that we're about either maxing or minning things, but I haven't heard the story strong enough yet that it really does fulfill kind of a larger vision for how a project can enhance an MXD zone at large. And I think we came up with some big macro issues about how the traffic patterns work, about how green space, I kind of wrap that in there. They're on the Booth Street side of the colonnade, what emerged from all that was a really nice outdoor space that was usable by both the residents and neighbors and anybody else who happened by. And there's some art in public places. There's a real, strong gesture, deliberate gesture to make an amenity there. None of that really is emerging into this project, and that to me is sort of fundamental. And I don't want to really talk about prescribing any particular solution, but there should be layers of that as part of this project for it to look like it belongs in an MXD approval at this point. I think I'm sort of paraphrasing in a way.
I think those are excellent points.
Go ahead. Yeah, so go ahead, Jody.
Well, I was just going to say this. I know you generally have a sense of how long you leave the record open to get the planning commission recommended. In light of the volume of comments and basically the list that John's got, I would ask that maybe the planning commission give us a bit longer period of time than what you normally would have, an extra 2 weeks after that or something, to give us more time, because we still have I've sent a letter to the Colonnade's attorney today saying we just need to sit down and work all this stuff out that we can work out. There may not everybody involved, but I need more time to work that out with their boards. And clearly the staff's got a lot of issues. I just think we need more time. So I'd ask the planning commission maybe leave its record open a little bit longer than normal to give us time to get that done in a patient, organized manner. Thank you.
I don't think we're in any hurry to get the record closed, so I'd sort of refer to staff for what sort of expectations you have for pace. And
if you guys are going to extend, then maybe we should do ours indefinitely, pending what you guys do. Mike, you had
yeah. So it would be great if we could model. So we talked a lot about how automobiles get out of the leave this area, the corner, and the development. We haven't talked about how people get into this. The different ways that they're going to use to get into this property. We're combining the Colonnade residents as well as this new project, the residents from there, and kind of have an idea of how people get into the Colonnade. But the way that I'm looking at it, the way that I've seen it, I think we've all seen it, is that the only way that people are going to get into this new project is going through the Colonnade or through the commercial district of Kentland. So other than the right in and right out. But remember, when the circulation of traffic, people coming down 124, Quince Orchard Road, how do they get into this property? There's only a couple places where you can turn left to get access to this. The same way coming up Great Seneca or down Great Seneca, there's only a couple ways to do this. But I'd like to see some models of that circulation of the peak drive times or commuter times for residents for both of these communities. I think we have to look at the combined commuting for both of these both of these communities and look at that as well. Somebody brought up the point about Arch Place being a private. It's actually a private street. The city has nothing to do with the maintenance of the street, and it wasn't constructed to the standards that we would build city streets, and that's the reason that when the city was asked a few years ago if we could take it over, we said, no, it's not constructed to our standards. So that same question holds for the new streets that are going to be developed around this property as well. So those are the last two things that I'd like to see you guys address.
I think in line with some of the comments and my personal take on the aesthetics of the building, architecture, and the amount of materials that are utilized in context with the colonnade, perhaps addressing it in a more in keeping architecture would be more appropriate with to be, namely classical or Georgian, to be specific.
Okay, so John, did we cover all of your questions?
Yes.
Okay, and Jasmine, you feel guided?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. All right, so do we have a date? What do you guys want to do about
I was going to ask staff maybe to comment on that if we want to push it out a bit, or if there needs to be, if it looks like a specific date, or if we defer. And definitely, I'm not recommending either, but just what do you all read from
So
this?
staff recommend that the Planning Commission hold their record for 46 days until 5 p.m. on March 24th, with anticipation recommendation on April 5th, 2017. Seems like enough.
Although I heard Mr. Klein suggest maybe that should be extended a bit, and I have no problem with that, frankly, but.
That's longer than I thought, so in the abstract, I think we ought to be able to get that done, but probably rather than have to come and ask for a postponement, I would say one more cycle, 2 weeks more.
Okay. I mean, I guess the other process, how the council feels the questions would be answered, and then our record would close and we turn into recommendation. Is there still, I mean, you still have more time to consider what the solution is for some of these issues, because some of them are kind of big.
We may actually want to schedule a work session on this.
Yeah, maybe that's the way to think about it.
Given the way the questions came up today, I actually thought it was a reasonable dialogue, and I wouldn't have an objection to that.
John?
We do have an available date on March 18th for a work session. March 13th, I'm sorry.
March 13th.
And that sounds good, because I think we can have a lot done by then, so that we have a much better understanding of the issues. So
Okay,
that's a good
let's
idea.
plan to do that.
Okay.
Let's plan to do that.
Yeah.
Okay, so that would be a joint work session.
Joint work session.
Good.
March 13th.
Okay, so everyone here who has interest in the topic, please write down for the time being and watch for the official announcement, March 13th. We'll have a work session. There will be opportunity for input from the public there as well. And so, should we hold records open indefinitely pending work session, John?
I think so. I think we'd prefer to have a set date, and if Mr. Klein is willing to go 2 weeks longer than March 24th,
pull out the calendar.
Can I?
10th or something.
I was going to recommend, if we have a work session, could we make a motion that night for a projected close of the record? Because we won't know until the work session just how well this has been resolved.
Lynn, are we able to do that at a work session? Yeah. Okay. Our city attorney, note for the record, she says, yes, we could do that at the work session.
It'd be awkward to motion for a close and then have to come back and reopen it because something wasn't resolved. It seems like it'd be easier to.
I'm certainly fine with that.
okay, so indefinite records for both.
Okay. So Lynn, do we need a motion to keep the records open indefinitely? Or do we just not make a motion to close them?
No, you should go ahead and make a motion to see if you
Okay.
keep the record open indefinitely.
Okay.
All right, so under that recommendation, that it's been recommended that the planning commission hold the record open indefinitely.
So moved.
Second. So moved and seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous, Mr. Mayor.
And the same for the council. What's the pleasure of the council?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, carries unanimously. Record is open indefinitely. Okay. For everybody in the public, before you leave, just want to recommend that you sign up for the city's e-newsletter called In Gaithersburg. If you go to gaithersburgmd.gov, you can sign up. It's absolutely free. It will keep you posted as to when meetings are coming up. And since we have no gazette, it's pretty much the best we can do.
Or you can hang out on nextdoor.com and I'll try to remind you.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, thank you all for thank you guys. Very nice discussion. Planning Commission, glad to have you here. Of course, you're welcome to stay. God gracious. Okay. we're going to move on to from the mayor and council. Our meeting's still going on.
Sorry, but
You're going to have to email. Our meeting is still going on? Yeah, you're going to have to email us. Yes.
Yes, you can write to, or the city council.
Yes, wait, hold, Doris. Okay, please do. Please do. Okay, everyone, our meeting is still going on, so we ask that you have any conversations outside the room.
We have more to say if you want to stick around.
Yes. Okay, next item on our agenda is from the mayor and city council. We're going to start with Councilmember Rob Wood.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to do the abbreviated version. Congratulations to Sydney. Congratulations to Yvette. Also, congratulations to the applicants, Jim, Jose, Lorianne. I see Josh is here. Congratulations to Ross for applying. Thank you for your civic service, interest in our community. Mike, congratulations to you and your job at the MML. I started a new job. I'm on active duty now. I work for the Army. Announcement.
Yes.
Formal announcement. Boards, commissions, and committee vacancies. The mayor and city council are seeking members to serve on a number of city boards, commissions, and committees. Joining is a way to get involved and help your community. The following have vacancies: Animal Control Board, 1 alternate, Public at Large, and 1 alternate representative of the Montgomery County Veterinary Medical Association, or someone who has training and or experience in the proper training or care of animals, open until filled. Boards of Appeals, 1 alternate, open until filled. Board of Supervisors of Elections, 1 alternate, open until filled. Community Advisory Committee, Cultural Arts Advisory Committee, Educational Enrichment Committee, Environmental Affairs Committee, Multicultural Affairs Committee, Police Advisory Committee, Senior Advisory Committee, Transportation Committee. I went through that quickly. They're all great committees to serve on. I don't want to play them short shrift because it's so late and I want to get home. If you're interested in serving on any of the above, please send a letter of interest and resume to Mayor City Council, 31 South Summit Avenue, Gaithersburg, Maryland, 20877, or via email to cityhall@gaithersburgmd.gov. For more information and official announcements, please visit the city's website at www.gaithersburgmd.gov or contact the city manager's office at 301-258-6310. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Rob. We'll go to Mike.
Okay, I just wanted to, there's like 3 things that we attended in the last couple of weeks. The first was the CCACC Lunar New Year celebration at Lake Forest. That was on January 28th, a Saturday. A number of us were able to attend and celebrate and bring in the Lunar New Year of the Rooster. So happy Year of the Rooster to all of you. I want to thank all those people who joined us last Monday on our District 17 night in Annapolis. I thought that went well. I hope everybody had a chance, if you hadn't been before, to see how state government works and what our delegates do and our senators. So thank you for coming out, and plan on doing that again next year. And then a couple days ago, a number of us attended a ceremony or an unveiling at the Wells Robertson House, where they a brick in honor of a paving brick in honor of Henry Marafa, another one recognizing Stan Alster, former council member, for their service to the Wells Robertson House. So we're very glad to be there for that. And so I'm going to announce some upcoming events and activities for February. The Main Street Farmers Market in Kentland stays open on Saturdays throughout the winter, weather permitting. We might get some winners, so you never know. You can register now for spring youth and teen sports. The deadline is March 1st. Resident registration is also now open for summer camps and clinics. Open registration starts February 15th. Payment plans are available. The Maryland Department of Transportation is hosting an open house to discuss the proposed bus rapid transit project along Route 355 at Montgomery College in Germantown on February 7th, and at the Executive Office Building in Rockville on February 8th. Both are at 6:30 p.m. A reception for participants in the Art League of Germantown Gallery exhibit at the Kentlands Mansion will be held on February 9th at 7 p.m. Enjoy an outing riddled with clues and a buffet of scandalous treats as you help solve a murder mystery at Murder at the Mansion's Dessert Theater on February 10th, 11th, and 12th at the Kentlands Mansion. Modern day musical love story I Love You Because is on stage at the Arts Barn on weekends, February 10th through the 26th. Dr. Seuss classics come to life through dance at the Metropolitan Ballet Ensemble. They're going to perform stories of Dr. Seuss on February 20th at the Arts Barn. The Community Museum After Hours lecture series continues on February 26th with a discussion on railway mail service. Come back to the museum for for the Storytime Station love-themed book reading on February 28th. The Mayor and City Council will conduct their annual planning retreat on February 27th at the Benjamin Gaither Center, starting at 6 p.m. The Singer-Songwriters series continues with Dala at the Arts Barn on March 4th. The concert is at 7:30 p.m. A workshop proceeds at 3 p.m. And more information for all of these events, including hours, admission fees, and ticket purchases, are all available at www.gaithersburgmd.gov.
Thank you, Mike. Ryan.
I'll just quickly echo what's already been said to congratulate all the people who have been recognized or congratulated or awarded this evening. I will add congratulations to Mike. I don't think he was in Rob's list. And it wasn't only Josh, but we have Jim and Richard, if he's still here or may have left. So thanks to everybody who applied for the open seat on the council. I'm looking forward to working further with Yvette, having already worked with her, as I know many of us have, and excited to have her joining the council. I did want to again thank officials from the Maryland Municipal League who travel all around the state all year long, visiting different municipalities. It's kind of a big deal to have the executive director of MML and the statewide president of MML here. So we appreciate them being here on the occasion of recognizing Mike's service. And then I have a couple of formal announcements. The mayor and city council are seeking to fill one vacancy on the Board of Supervisors of Elections for one alternate member position. The Board of Supervisors of Elections works in conjunction with the city's Department of Legal Services. The board oversees the registration of voters, petitions for elected office, and officiates over all city elections, regular or special. The board consists of 5 members and 1 alternate who are appointed by the mayor with the approval of the city council. Members serve staggered 4-year terms. Regular elections are held in odd-numbered years on the first Tuesday after the first Monday in November, with the next election set for Tuesday, November 7th, 2017, this year. All applicants must reside within the corporate city limits and be a registered voter in the city. Resumes and letters of interest should be mailed to Mayor and City Council, 31 South Summit Avenue, Gaithersburg, Maryland, 20877, or you can send them via email to cityhall@gaithersburgmd.gov. This position will remain open until filled. For more information, visit the city's website or contact City Attorney Lynn Board at 301-258-6310. Another formal announcement after a closed executive session. A closed session was held at the Kentlands Mansion by the Mayor and City Council of Gaithersburg on Wednesday, January 25th, 2017, at approximately 7:32 p.m., pursuant to a motion adopted unanimously. The session was proposed to be closed pursuant to the General Provisions Article of the Annotated Code of Maryland, Section 3-305B1I, for the appointment, employment, assignment, promotion, discipline, demotion, compensation, removal, resignation, or performance evaluation of appointees, employees, or officials over whom it has jurisdiction. The purpose of the closed session was solely to interview council applicants, and present at the meeting were Mayor Ashman and council members Harris, Sesma, Spiegel, and Wu. City staff present were City Manager Tomasello, Deputy City Manager Enslinger, and City Attorney Board. Council candidates present were Jose Contreras, who arrived at 7:35 and left at 8:07 p.m., and Jim Rolfs, who arrived at 8:07 p.m. and left at 8:48 p.m. Upon conclusion of the discussion, the closed session was adjourned at approximately 9:02 p.m. One more quick informal note of congratulations. Gaithersburg City resident Rand Gelber was appointed to be a judge by the governor, and he is being sworn in this week to the district court in Rockville, so our congratulations to Judge Gelber.
Thanks, Ryan. Neil.
Can I move to adjourn? No, not yet, right?
Not quite.
All right, sorry. All right, so since it's late, I'm just going to echo most of what everybody said. Congratulations to Yvette and to the other people who participated in the process, and I'm glad that we're still seeing everybody around, and I'm sure we'll see you and hear from you as time goes by on an ongoing basis. And of course, congratulations to Sydney, congratulations to Mike, congratulations to everybody who needs congratulating. So I was going to talk about infrastructure a little bit, but since all the people I wanted to address that to have left the room and everybody else has heard this before, I'm going to hold off since it's been such a long meeting, and I'll talk about it some other time. But rest assured, all of us are working really hard at advocating for things that are outside of the city's control and doing whatever we can to improve things that are in the city's control, to get more space in our schools, to make the traffic move better, and so on and so forth. With that said, I will go to the official announcement. A closed session was held at the Kentlands Mansion by the Mayor and City Council of Gaithersburg on Thursday, January 26th at approximately 7:32 p.m. pursuant to a motion adopted unanimously. The session was proposed to be closed pursuant to the General Provisions article of the Annotated Code of Maryland, Section 3-305B1I, the appointment, employment, assignment, promotion, discipline, demotion, compensation, removal, resignation, or performance evaluation of appointees, employees, or officials over whom it has jurisdiction. The purpose of the closed session was to interview council applicants and select a new city council member. Present at the meeting were Mayor Ashman, council members Harris, Sesma, Spiegel, and Wu. City staff present were City Manager Tomasello, Deputy City Manager Enslinger, and City Attorney Board. City Council candidates present were Jim McNulty, arrived at 7:35, left at 7:59. Lorianne Sales arrived at 8:05 and left at 8:30. And Yvette Monroe arrived at 8:35 and left at 9:05. Upon conclusion of the discussion, the closed session was adjourned at approximately 10:05 p.m. That's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Neil. As I mentioned earlier, we are having our special meeting on Wednesday to swear Yvette in, and a reception. Everybody is invited. I hope you'll join us. That is at 6:30 p.m. in this room. And then next week, our work session is on small cell facilities. 7:30 p.m. Monday, February 13th. And then, yes, the next regular meeting of the Mayor and Council is on the 20th. No, 21st, because of President's Day, right, Doris?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, we're going to go to from the city manager.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to kind of get in the record my appreciation for Legit coming out tonight and presenting both the training grant and the healthcare cooperative refund. Legit and their healthcare partners, Benecon and Cigna, have been really helpful for us in navigating the complicated waters of healthcare as late as today, going through the different statistics and plan opportunities. So I appreciated Tim coming out. Also appreciate the work that PIO did, Public Information did on the virtual budget form that's been taken down off the website now. We got over 120 responses. We're tabulating them. I've seen a short preview, and it's impressive the thought that some of our residents put into their responses.
Well, that's good.
And I think they'll be really helpful.
Great.
And of course, I have to also add my congratulations to Yvette Monroe. We're looking forward to meeting all the department heads and facilities on a tour, the orientation tour, which is scheduled for Friday. And that's all I have.
All right, thank you. We will move on to economic development update. Tom Lonergan.
Good morning. I was just going to give you the couple times a year we get a full report from Montgomery County visitors on the health of our hotel industry here in the city. And despite Director Schlichting's insistence that I read the entire thing fully, slowly, and twice, I'm going to defer until next time, and I'm just going to say thank you for allowing me the opportunity today to attend ICSC, the International Council of Shopping Centers Mid-Atlantic Retail Conference at National Harbor. Always a good opportunity to meet with area developers, brokers, and retailers who are interested in doing business here in the region. It's particularly nice to see Kimco highlighting their efforts at Market Square during a panel session, and there were photos up on the screen for hundreds to see. And so again, thank you again for that. See you next time.
Thank you, Tom.
Thanks, Tom.
Okay, next we are going to ordinances, resolutions, regulations. We are inviting Dennis Enslinger and Mark Soroka to the podium.
actually Mark Wendell.
Okay.
So tonight before you, the staff is asking you to approve a resolution or consider a resolution authorizing the mayor and city council to allow the city manager to award a contract for professional services in the area of architecture and engineering design for 16 South Summit. For those members of the public that are maybe listening, I think everybody else is familiar that 16 South Summit is directly across the street, and the city recently purchased that to allow for the expansion of the police facility that is actually on the other side of 16 South Summit, so it will be in the same general area. I will note some interesting fact that we actually started the CIP project, or actually opened it up in 2009, so this is actually a long time coming in having this come to fruition. The city received 5 proposals for the request for proposals related to the architectural and engineering services. Based upon that, we actually divided it into a 2-phase process. One where we considered the first phase, then narrow it down to a core group to be interviewed. With those, we looked at the number of different things of qualifications, the actual project team, the design approach, and the cost of the proposal. From that, 2 firms actually rose to the top. We actually had them also come back and do a number of series of interviews. One of them was to show how they interpreted the scope of the project, and we actually had them lay out designs within the 16 South Summit to see how creative they were going to be in terms of the different approaches, and that was one of the things that we took into consideration. Based upon that final scope of interviews, we're recommending Schrader Group for a number of different reasons. One is really their design approach. We thought they were the most creative. Again, this is going to be a rehabilitation of an existing office building. We also looked at the key staff members. They were proposing both the project managers, the lead and the secondary project manager. And then also one of the things that was unique about their group that they put together is Daniel Redstone, who's actually with his own firm. They worked with him with Redstone Architects, and he has over 30 years experience in designing police stations and other facilities. And so we think we're getting a really good team, both with Schrader Group, and then when they've added Daniel Redstone, that really helps seal the deal for that. So we're asking you at this point to consider approval of the resolution in the amount of $702,000. That was the original bid of $668,635, with some contingency to compensate for any unknowns that we might find in the building during the design.
Thank you, Dennis. I certainly appreciate the fact that these bids came in under, significantly under what we were expecting. So, any questions, comments here?
No, I think the fact that they're working with this group, organization, company, has experience with design and construction of police facilities, police stations is really important, and the fact that we're under budget is additionally important. So that's my only comment.
You want to move the resolution?
I'll move the resolution.
Second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Carries 4-0. Thank you very much. Next, we have Mike Johnson, Director of Public Works. Welcome, Mike.
Good evening, Mayor, members of Council. The resolution before you for consideration this evening authorizes the City Manager to award a contract for construction services at the Old Town Parking Garage. The proposed work is comprised of the replacement of the parking garage staircase and the repair and leak abatement of the elevator pit. This project was initially bid with an additional work package, which was the repair of the skywalk. But bids that were received for all 3 work packages exceeded the project budget. As there was only one bidder, staff was able to enter into price negotiations with the contractor, and was able to prioritize the work packages to include in the scope the 2 work packages that had life safety concerns for our planning and code department. These were the ones that are the replacement of the staircase as well as the elevator pit. The initial amount that was bid was $567,000. Following staff negotiations, that was brought down to $430,834. And due to the nature of this type of work, a contingency of $43,000, which is roughly about 10% of the negotiated price, was included to bring the contract award not to exceed $473,834. Notice to proceed can be issued shortly following contract award.
Thank you, Mike. Any questions or comments?
I was surprised that there was only one bidder.
It was a bit of a surprise, and when staff probed, it had to do with the complexity of the fact that the structure is impacted by the CSX railroad and the insurance and flagging costs associated with it, and possibly the unfamiliarity with working with CSX as a railroad property was a bit of a disincentive for other parties to participate. But this particular firm, Nastos, we have worked with them before, and they have done a very good job. The due diligence that was done on, their bona fides shows that we have great confidence that they can do the project in a way that gives us value for our money.
Great. We'll move the resolution if nobody else has any questions.
I'll second it.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Carries 4-0. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next, we have policy discussion, and we have Louise Kaufman. Welcome, Louise.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Council. This is an ordinance to amend Chapter 13 of the City Code entitled Landlord-Tenant Relations so as to amend Section 1338 entitled Relocation Assistance, Demolition, or Redevelopment, and to add a new Section 1339 entitled Relocation Assistance, Rental of Single-Family Home, violating this code. On January 3rd, 2017, the Mayor and City Council held a public hearing on the proposed amendments to Chapter 1338, including adding the new Section 1339. The ordinance was introduced by the Mayor and Council at the December 19th, 2016 Council meeting. The record was held open for 15 days, closing at 5:00 p.m. on January 18th, 2017. No written or oral comments regarding the proposed amendments were received. Since the public hearing, there have been 2 exhibits added to the record: the minutes from that meeting and a memorandum from City Attorney Lynn Board addressing a question regarding displacement assistance when eminent domain is exercised. The ordinance is ready for final action, and we are happy to take any questions or address any concerns by the council.
Thank you, Louise. Questions or statements? This is his policy discussion.
Can you just summarize the letter about eminent domain?
Yeah, sure. State law controls the proceedings for the acquisition of private property for public use by condemnation and related relocation assistance requirements. So for individuals displaced from a dwelling who are not eligible to receive payment as an owner-occupant, state law requires payments in an amount necessary to enable the person to lease or rent for a period not to exceed 42 months a comparable replacement dwelling, but in an amount not to exceed $10,500. In addition, the displacing agency is required to pay the displaced person for the actual reasonable expenses in moving the individual and his or her family.
Okay, that clarifies the concern I had. That, we don't want to create victims of our own desire if we decide to do something like that. So I'll move the resolution. Or I'll move the ordinance. The ordinance.
Well, I do have the concern still that perhaps the ordinance is creating an entitlement to compensation that would be above and beyond that which would be contemplated in the lease term itself. And so I'm just putting that out there for a matter of policy discussion. You know, I fully endorse the alleviating the burdens on those that are being displaced when they're, you know, partially through their lease term. But, you know, for example, if you're almost at the end of your lease term and one of the triggering actions occurs, my understanding, again, it's late, so correct me if I'm wrong, is that there would be an entitlement to the 3 months of payment. Is that?
Well, the 2 months from under Chapter 53A and the additional month and a half under the city. That's correct.
So 3.5 months, okay.
Correct.
So that would just be my concern under this in general. That's it.
Okay. So does anybody else have any comments or?
Any
Mike has
thoughts?
made a motion, we don't have a second
You
yet.
don't have a second yet, so.
Second.
Okay.
If Mike's good with it, I'm good with it. Well, I mean, it's a concern. I guess the question is, we haven't had any correspondence from property owners that would have to pay something like this.
Yeah, I mean,
correct? So.
I raised it at the time. I guess we didn't hear comments on it. I guess hearkening back to our conversation, it sounded like the notice provisions from we would follow from the county would afford the opportunity for notice to the end of the lease term that would exceed the 3.5 months payment. Is that? Am I remembering?
I'm sorry.
It seemed that based on our conversation, when I originally raised this concern upon introduction, that the notification requirements that the county sets that we follow here would be such that you would be outside the 3.5 month payment period anyway. So you couldn't drop a 1 month notice on a tenant to vacate and then they would be entitled to 3.5 months payment, which is my concern, is creating a more entitlement than the lease would actually provide. I know it's late.
Kevin, do you have anything to say to that?
Kevin, come up to the microphone, please. So, Rob.
If I understand the question correctly,
Yeah.
the county requires a 120 days notice period. So under that 120 days, if you're saying if that tenant's lease was going to end within that 120 days, would they still be entitled to the 3.5 months?
My concern is,
relocation
okay, let's say you
monies?
have a 1 month or 12-month lease, and you're at the 11th month, and there's a triggering provision that would require 3.5 months payment. The tenant would be entitled to 3.5 months payment when they'd only have the contemplation of 1 month benefit under the lease.
That's correct. Yes, they would be entitled to those.
That's the
the
concern.
relocation monies.
Okay.
Okay.
And part of that, I think, is because often tenants get very late notice of lease renewals by landlords just as a standard procedure.
Right.
Usually a month and a
It's
bit.
generally 30 to 60 to 30 days.
But
notice.
But we have had reports of much less, and it's probably why the county came up with the original 120-day notice, I believe. I'm not positive about that.
All right, well, we're going to go ahead and take this to vote. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay.
Back it up a second, Mr. Mayor, to the aye portion.
Okay. All right, carries unanimously. Thank you very much. Anything from any other staff?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Not seeing anything from any other staff. Okay. Again, next week we have a work session on small cell facilities. Next regular meeting of the Mayor and City Council is Tuesday, February 21st, due to the President's Day holiday. Until next time, let's do great things, Gaithersburg. We are adjourned.